PacificMedia.com presents Beyond the Wall, a Game of Thrones podcast. With hosts Christiana Ellis, Jute Schubert, Vivid Muse, and Nookchus.
Hey! You're muted, I think. Oh, no. Or maybe no one was saying anything.
No, nobody was saying anything.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, to Season 7 of Beyond the Wall. Tonight, we're discussing Episode 5 of Game of Thrones, titled Eastwatch, with no spoilers past the currently aired episode. And that's currently aired episodes, not currently leaked episodes.
Yeah.
No leak talk.
And tonight we have the whole gang with us. We got Viv back, who's been on the road, been out. How you doing, babe?
Good. So much to talk about, and I've missed talking about it with you guys. It's the longest stretch I've gone without being able to. It's just like, oh.
We're glad to have you back for sure.
Absolutely.
With news bits overall, actually, I don't think I really had anything. The next episode was leaked. It was not related to the hacks or anything. It was an accident on the part of an affiliate in another country. They accidentally put it on their on-demand for an hour. And of course, that's all it took.
Which is, yeah, that's forever.
All it takes. That happened last season or 2 seasons ago, where accidentally the first 4 were released, and it was something similar to that. And
yeah, you know, it's. I don't know, but I can't. At a certain point, it starts feeling a little bit like people sure. Well, I don't know. I was going to say it's suspicious because people are spending a lot. Is it really like secret publicity? But then again, I'm saying like, there's not a shortage of people who want to watch the show already. So
that want to advertise on the show.
Yeah.
I think the first 4 we could, when they were accidentally 4 episodes out there, I think we could argue that could have been false. A false leak kind of a thing, drumming up people talking about it. Whereas I think this one, especially after the previous leak, it's harder to believe that that's faked by them. But who knows?
But I don't know why they keep getting hacked. Their Twitter got hacked just last night.
Yep.
No
Really?
way.
Oh man.
Yeah.
This is the first season that I have been like clicking on all of the links and reading all of the blogs and all the speculation and all this stuff, except for now that, I think last week there was something that was leaked also, a script or something. And then the episode that we're just talking about that's already out. And it makes it hard because that people have seen it and they're speculating wildly stuff that they've already seen happen in the next episode. And so it's just really hard to avoid. And so now I decided I'm just reading anything and everything that I want to read. Spoil me, spoil me, spoil me. And it's just like, but don't show me the actual show, give me your speculation, but don't tell me so-and-so was, shown on the casting list on accident. It's like, don't tell me that shit.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, though, depending on how much you pay attention to that stuff. Because, for example, in this episode, we had the long-awaited return of a certain character that I guess people who really do pay close attention to the names in the credits would have seen that actor's name in the credits.
Exactly.
And so, which actually just drives home to me that, there's no value in paying close attention to those names.
Yeah.
All it can possibly do is ruin something for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I stopped paying attention to those names a couple seasons ago for that kind of a reason.
I just haven't ever wanted to spoil myself with speculation and all this stuff because I didn't want to, I still want to read, all of the books and experience them myself, and separately from the TV show / film, the experience that we're getting. But now it's just like I've read 2 things that are probably going to happen. And it's just really disappointing to know that I know something that's definitely going to happen, as opposed to what we've become accustomed to with the show, which is, well, this is what happened in the books, but they're going to do what they're going to do. Oh,
I think this is also the first season or at least it's become more prevalent this season. I've seen leaks in news headlines. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to leak, but can you believe that about Gendry?
Yeah.
Like,
You just, yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you what happened,
I mean,
folks.
that's just a side effect of something becoming as popular as this show is. There's so many people talking about it that you start getting the less scrupulous amongst the various people writing about it, that they're trying to get you to read their article and not someone else's article, and so they make the headline,
Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah.
So it's not good, but I think it's unavoidable.
Must work.
I don't watch normally on the day of the episode.
Mhm.
And lately I can't really look at Twitter or Tumblr or even Facebook newsfeed. Not that I look at that too much. I just can't really read anything until I watch the show, because people just talk
Oh my God.
and it's like, okay, so I don't know, and I don't know. It's some people can argue and say, well, it's your fault, you have access to it, why aren't you watching it? Well, I also have my life, and I enjoy watching on my own time.
Yeah, see, that's like, I feel like that argument stands for like the minimum window before you can start saying that is a week, in my opinion.
Mm.
Because like, it's one thing to say, okay, well, if you can't watch the episode in a whole week, then it raises the question of like, well, how hard are you actually trying?
Yeah.
But from one day to the next, though,
Yeah.
that's
It'll
like,
be
there's lots of people
Sunday
who
night.
just,
It'll be Sunday night, and people
Mhm.
are putting gifts out there
well, because
and all that nonsense. And it's fine. I understand your passion. That's why I have groups that I talk about the spoilers in.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
I want to be in
yeah.
that group. I
well,
want to join it now.
people want to
All right.
live tweet it and stuff like that, and that's
Mhm.
honestly, I think maybe that's maybe something that I feel like would be a useful feature for Twitter to implement, is kind of like, if you want to do a live tweet or something, you can put some little flag
Yeah.
on
Let
your
people filter.
tweet, so that people can opt in.
Yeah, like
Right.
you enter live tweet mode and then exit live tweet mode, so that when you're live tweeting, if somebody's subscribed to notifications, they're not getting a notification every minute.
Yeah.
And people that don't want to see it don't have to watch it. But people who want to see people live tweet can
Mhm.
totally jump in and watch.
Right, like instead of seeing just the tweet show up in your list, what you might see is so and so is live tweeting this show,
Mhm.
and then you can like click the
Mhm.
link to say, do you want to see that or not?
Or sporting events. or
Anyway,
anything,
no,
Yep.
the perils
Cool.
of media consumption on the internet.
Yeah.
It is.
Anybody have any other news bits?
Nothing new
June
on
after.
George's blog, or his not a blog.
Not a blog.
Cool. And we will jump into Eastwatch, which was on the map. There's a little Eastwatch.
Yeah. I was actually a little, I mean, they named the episode Eastwatch, and then they put it in the credits, and there was surprisingly little Eastwatch in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one thing that came up is, no ghost. And I did, this is kind of newsy. I did find out that they wrote a ghost scene and they filmed a ghost scene last episode or 2 episodes ago, before John left. And yeah, it didn't make it to the show.
That was the Nymeria episode. I think I read the same thing. Yeah.
They filmed it, and well, I guess they went with one direwolf scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sansa makes mention of it as, sitting here like Ghost.
Well, it's probably because Ghost will show up again eventually for something, and so they have to leave little breadcrumbs here and there to remind us, oh yeah, there's a thing called Ghost that might have plot relevance again someday.
Just might. So let's jump into the episode. This one seemed pretty...
Ooh, you guys.
What?
I just got his name on another level. like John's a ghost because he's like resurrected.
Yeah.
That was a spoiler from the first book, y'all. Sorry, never mind.
I had heard a recent, I guess, not fan theory, but I guess fan catch of an Easter egg from the very first episode when they find the direwolf pups. They say, 5 pups for 5 Starks.
Mm-hmm.
John's left out, and then he gets a white one, and Targaryen's all have white hair. And
Well, and I think a lot of people theorized when John was killed, before we knew how he was going to come back, people speculated that maybe his spirit would go into Ghost or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Warging in.
Yeah. Book readers, especially, because there's breadcrumbs for that, if you warg into something before you die, you can continue living in whatever you warged into.
Well, and they cover that even a little bit in the show with the the eagle. Or actually, did they even handle? I don't even remember.
We
talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oral, after his bird got killed, he just all I think that we got from it was that the bird just attacked John and just hated him.
Yeah.
Was that the Oral's soul in him, or was the bird just pissed off because he knew that his counterpart had been killed? I don't know.
Yeah.
So in the show, we open up basically where the last one left off. Jaime and Bronn are alive. I don't think anybody's
and apparently,
surprised,
like a mile away, with nobody noticing that they're escaping. Game of Thrones, but come on.
Yeah.
They definitely set it up like they're taking their first gasp of air, like they've just surfaced, and they're nowhere near the battle. And no one thought to look for Jaime Lannister. Tyrion saw him go into the water. And they, I guess he's just gone. And then Tyrion knows he's alive later, apparently. So I don't know. That was some real shenanigans.
Well,
I'm reminded. Sorry, I'm reminded of Misery when Annie starts ranting about the cliffhanger and that's not what happened and you got to fix the writing, and that's exactly what I'm feeling there. And I'm sure Tyrion's walking around the battlefield. Oh, I don't see my brother dead, so he must be alive. Come on, Game of Thrones, whatever, but
well,
Bronn absolutely should have died.
I think that watching, was it that same? I don't know if it's the next scene, but when Tyrion is walking through, I guess it's later, so we'll talk about it then. But I think that's one of the things he's doing. I think that's one of the reasons he's so morose. It's not just because these were his family's troops and stuff. It was because where's my brother? And all these people have been turned to dust, and you can't identify anybody.
Well, and like all that makes sense, but then later he just jumps immediately to, we got to make this plan where I'm going to, let my sister know, and I'm going to have to talk to my brother. And it's like he knows that obviously Jaime is not only alive, but back in King's Landing in order to be met with.
Yeah. Oh, no, we'll talk. We'll get there.
Saw him walk in or something.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Okay, where are we at?
But I mean,
Jaime and Bronn.
It was a good conversation. Between those two.
Yeah.
We could say it was a river with a strong current.
Right.
And it carried them that far away. Yeah.
With all that armor and all that steel.
Current was being pushed by plutonium.
Yeah.
Total suspension of disbelief, I guess is what it's called.
Mike McCauley in the chat says, I had an issue with that. The smoke was a mile away and all that armor. Come on. And then he spits out about a cup of water.
I know.
Yeah. All his armor and his gold hand.
Yeah.
Like literally it had no effect other than they got wet.
Yeah.
There was no consequences.
Yeah. And then then Bronn keeps his pimp strong by reminding the cunt that he's not going to get to die until he gets what he's owed. But somehow he's going to be able to skip the dragon part. Oh, I'm not going to stick around for the dragons, but you want a castle?
Yeah, and then there's all that talk, and then of course later we find out, nope, he still went back to King's Landing with Jaime, and he's still helping out and doing all sorts of other stuff. So
yeah, So
whatever.
We can expect him to cut and run, I guess, as soon as they
Yeah.
start heading towards him again. I can't see him want to do that again now that he knows that firsthand that the great weapon that they have was nothing. I mean, it stopped everything, but just for a second.
It was certainly not enough to count on to win the war.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go figure. A tiny little scorpion for a big dragon. Go figure. It didn't really do much.
Well, yeah, it's too hard to hit them. It's too uncertain, and it's too vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tyrion doing his survey, and then Dany addressing the prisoners.
Oh my
Bend the knee
gosh.
or die, which basically negates everything in the speech up to that point.
Right.
Well,
I'm
right,
not going to kill you, but I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I say. But I'm not going to kill you unless you don't do what I say. But I'm not a murderer. But I'm going to have to stop this for a second just to point out just like what a stunning scene. I could hear Nutty squeal all the way from Canada when they showed Drogon on top of that little mountain thing and just the wings spread and just, it was just so majestic. And it's one of the reasons that I'm just really loving this season and the investment that they're making in it to make the cinematography just like stuff I could have never like visualized on my own. It's just amazing.
Well, this episode in particular, but it's part of a pattern for the whole season, is reminds me of a criticism I read about the Marvel movies, which was just observing that from a writing perspective, they're not writing stories, they're writing set pieces and then coming up with plot contrivance to link one set piece to another. And to an extent, any action movie is going to work that way just because it's kind of almost by necessity. And a show like this, it makes sense that there would be an element of that too, because you want to have these big cinematic moments and you have to sort of structure things around those because they're too expensive to change those.
Right.
But at the same time, what you end up with is you get these set piece moments where everything's really cool and it clicks and, as an isolated scene, everything's great. But then you really have to, you start to really see the seams in between those. And so I loved the visual of, all the people standing down with, Drogon silhouetted up against the sky. Oh, it's great. And even the scene is, we'll talk in a minute about where that's all going. But the scene works, but it just comes down to what we were just talking about with Jaime is well, they didn't want Jaime to be captured yet. So they just said, he falls in the water and then he comes out somewhere else. We don't care.
Yeah.
They didn't have
I just had him leave when Bronn told him to leave.
Yeah.
Hey, what do I know?
I think they're setting up a death wish for him.
Yeah. So Paulette says Bronn is so obviously invincible. He should have died 5 times last episode, and now he can breathe underwater.
And he's really the drowned god.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No.
And Viv Mike says, looking good, Viv. Great to have you back.
Aw, thanks, Mike.
So yeah, it's Dany, bend the knee or die. I mean, even the slaves were offered their freedom, though these are soldiers.
See, this is what kind of what we've been talking about with this season, where it seems like they have Dany going, and this is just kind of the emblem of that. Is that last week Missandei was all about, she's the queen we chose, and if I wanted to leave, she would just give me a ship and say, good fortune, but she's not acting like that anymore.
Yeah.
She is not. For all she says that I'm not here to murder, I'm here to break the wheel. That first of all, it's a phrase that we haven't really heard used in it. It feels like the metaphor is a bit strained without having all the supporting material leading up to it. But anyway. It's one thing to say that, but her actions don't bear that out. And I think that that's deliberate.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly like a fun direction to take her story in. And I'm not really sure where they're going with that, because it's kind of, they're sending her down a dark path and making sure that we understand that's what's happening.
Well, I guess one aspect to consider is the fact that she does not have Masende and she does not have Grey Worm, and she only had, our friend for a minute before he headed off with John. But I think it's like she's forgetting. It's almost like so the episode where Arya's talking to Hot Pie and she's just got that glazed over dead like yeah, it's great to see you, eating, drinking until Hot Pie says John's still alive. And that's like when it's like all of that stuff dropped and Arya was like, oh my God, my family's still alive. And like and then seeing people and seeing the people that she loved and all of that has brought her back and brought her towards humanity again and away from what she was with the faceless men, right? The faceless god, whatever. And so I think that Dany's having the kind of opposite effect, maybe, because she doesn't really have anybody that she feels like close with. Tyrion, I think the week before last, she snapped at him, accusing him of wanting his family to win instead of her. So, I mean, it just seems like she's losing that touch with the things that started her out with freeing slaves and delayed her whole trip to Westeros.
Yeah.
3 seasons ago.
Well, yeah. I mean, what it just comes down to is that the whole clever plan was to try to find a way to not have to use the foreign armies. Because because here's the thing is that, Tarly, yeah, he's a jerk. We don't like him. That's fine. I don't think we're really sad to see him die exactly. But at the same time, without saying that he's in the right, what he says is true.
Mm-hmm.
She is a foreign invader.
Mm-hmm. She was born in Westeros.
Well, no, I mean, she was born physically in Westeros. But her family had been, it's generationally a Westeros family. And that's my problem, is it sounds too much like, it just sounds like I'm not going to get into politics. It sounds like bullshit.
Okay.
But, I mean, you know what I mean? Because she but she just got kicked out for a while, so she wouldn't be murdered.
I'm not defending that, it's a bad thing that she's from another continent. I'm saying that the whole idea of trying to use Westerosi soldiers was because there's going to be a lot of people who will never accept her as their true queen, because from their perspective, this is someone coming from across the sea with a bunch of strangers and wrecking everything that you've got here, And so I'm not defending the xenophobic worldview so much as accepting that if she intends to rule these people, she needs to be able to deal with that worldview, because a lot of people are going to have it. And what she's gotten to now is, for all her talk about, I want to free people, so bend the knee or die. You work for me now, or I will kill you on the spot.
It's another form of slavery. They don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, it's like, what about, there's no taking prisoners? There's no stripping of their arms and sending them on their way? I mean, like,
I think like that in Dany's head is her distinction, is I don't take prisoners because prisoners are like slaves. I don't think that that's a great thing, I don't take prisoners, so I'll kill them. I don't really want to talk too much about this scene, because I really didn't like this scene all that much, except for the dragon part. I mean, the dragon part was cool. And
especially the s'mores part.
Yeah.
Toasted the marshmallows.
And they were building Dickon up to be something, and then they got rid of him. So,
that was hard.
But I think I agree with Paulette in the chat. And she says, to me, this whole scene seems like nothing more than a way to make Sam the last surviving Tarly.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
true.
Yeah. I mean, it is that. Yeah.
It would give, if nothing else, it would give Gilly and little Sam a safe place to kind of bunker down while Sam goes off to get written about, since that's, since he wants to be a man of adventure now.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that it's not just for that. I mean, obviously they're using that, but I think the bigger intent of the scene is making it clear that Dany is going, like, our complaints about her tactics here are how we're supposed to be feeling.
Right. Yeah.
We're supposed to be kind of with Tyrion of saying, the way you're handling this is kind of not cool, and people are not going to react well to this, and it's not going to have the outcome that you're looking for.
How about you, Chooch?
No, although I imagine there's going to be a mass defection from those Lannister troops. A bunch of them are going to disappear, and then she's going to be, oh, why don't they love me? Everybody loves me. And
yeah. I'm trying to break the wall.
Maybe that'll help,
But I really don't think that the thing that bothers me, and this is as a fan of Dany, is kneel or die is not a choice.
Right.
You're not getting supporters. Those are not people you can trust.
Right.
And I also think Drogon should have just eaten them. I really think Drogon deserved a snack.
He did work pretty hard.
Yeah.
And took one for the team.
But I think it's an interesting distinction to discuss, though, in the sense of, I think some of what we're feeling when we say we don't like the scene, and I kind of tend to agree, we can, it's a fair question to ask ourselves, is it that the scene is bad, or is it just that we don't like the intended effect of the scene is to make us unhappy about the decisions that Dany is making?
That's easy. It's an excellent episode. They did it beautifully. It was masterfully done. I hate this aspect of Dany. So that's easy for me. What about you, Chooch?
No, I'm critiquing her decisions, not the filmmaking or the story.
Right, yeah.
I think it's a little of column A, a little of column B. I just feel like we spent a lot of time there.
But if that's where she's at, we really needed to know that. And it was a really big thing for the Tarly house to be just obliterated except for Sam. And his mom is still alive.
How hard Tyrion tried.
Yeah, it's really messing with him.
There was really nothing else he could do.
Yep, what's next?
King's Landing with Jaime and Cersei. He speedwalks and tells her they can't win. And Tyrion didn't kill Joffrey. And I've seen a few complaints from people saying, Cersei never would have believed him. But I think this scene played really well. The way he was persistent and think it through. I think she totally believed him.
Yeah, I think it was very persuasive when you just the one sentence, would you rather have your grandchild married to Joffrey or Tommen? Boom. Cersei knows what Joffrey was. So that I think is all she needed to hear, to actually hear it from Jaime.
Her only redeeming quality has ever been the love for her children.
Yeah.
Right?
Save us.
And so when you put her in the mother's mindset, who would you have rather?
Exactly.
I've been saying for the last couple episodes what I thought was going to happen, and that Cersei was going to hear it and not care.
Exactly.
And that was going to be what pushes Jaime.
Yeah.
And I think, this went completely against what I was expecting.
Yeah.
When she realizes that it's that Olenna was the one that did it, the look on her face is so striking and actually moving. It is the first time I'm seeing any real reaction from Cersei in a long time, because everything has been so calculated from her and she's known everything. And I think that was actually a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
Twists it around.
Yeah.
And instead of pushing Jaime away, she brings him closer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's later.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think that she doesn't care that Tyrion didn't do it. She cares that Olenna was even worse than she thought.
That she didn't suffer.
Yes. That matters.
I think there is zero remorse or even concern that it turns out that Tyrion wasn't guilty. I don't think that even really, she doesn't care. She doesn't care about that. And I think that if the conversation had continued in that direction, it might have been different. But this is where we I think, discuss her little announcement and whether or not is that even real or what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
If she finishes the conversation with "Don't ever betray me again."
Yeah, which is something Danny said to Varys, I think.
Wait, no, I guess maybe we're conflating two. Are we conflating two conversations?
Yeah,
That's
we're
later.
definitely
it's
getting
later
chocolate in our
conversation,
peanut
but-
butter.
Yeah, they were very similar scenes, though. They both open up with she's meeting with Qyburn about something that we don't get to hear.
Yeah, and it's in the same room, and yeah.
I thought it was really interesting how much like Tywin Cersei seemed to be, because the first time Jaime walks into the room, she's like, "How many soldiers did we lose?" Not, "Oh, you're alive," but like literally, she was like reminding him, "I am the boss. You are going to answer to me, and this is how we're doing it." And it didn't even break her until it was the Olenna confession, that I think, she did show some emotion there. It was just, it was one of my favorite duo of scenes, since we've already kind of mixed them. And I think that we all want Jaime to love Brienne because she's honorable and she makes him do honorable things as a result of knowing her. But yeah, he likes the bad girls. He really likes the bad girls.
Well, bad girl.
Bad girl.
One in particular.
That's true. It is just the one creepy one that's been there since. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I wouldn't. There's the show that Game of Thrones used to be, and there's the show that it is now. I mean, I think we can kind of agree there that the show has become something much more fan servicey and conventional. I think in the last few seasons, which is not an unambiguously bad thing. Like, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that as a complaint so much as an observation that it produces different.
Yeah,
it's shooting for different things. And I feel like the show as it was before, I would say, I'm not sure there's any reasonable explanation for how Jaime would ever even see Brienne again. But the show as it is now, how can they not?
Right. It'll happen.
Right? Like, they will find a way.
Yep.
Probably.
I feel like the last scene of the series is just going to literally, let's put every single character all in one big room.
It's going to be like the Lost finale, right?
Yeah, all meet at a church.
Yeah. Everybody hang out. It's awesome. We're all friends now. High five.
All be arm or shoulder to shoulder at the wall. Fighting together. So it's over to Dragonstone.
This is my favorite scene.
John's out on his brooding cliff, and Dany returns, and I'm pretty sure, I'm convinced Drogon got a whiff of some sweet Targaryen blood.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a cutie. He's so adorable. And he got all close. And I have to add the double-lidded crocodile eye thing. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
It was amazing. And so Tech hasn't been watching this show since the torture of Theon. Every now and then I bring him in just for dragon stuff. As I was watching that, I had to call him into the room right away. I said, "You need to see this."
Yeah.
And the detail was amazing.
Was so good.
And that it actually
Absolutely
did seem to have more of a personality,
Yeah.
with this massive thing and just the little
feel
chirps
like
and
was expressed.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I think was really valuable for the show at this point, which is to show another side of the dragons, how they act, and not just have them be the flamethrowers, but but also I think they're definitely trolling the fans at this point.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that they're not actually building up to a for real reveal, but it's at the same time, this has been such a slow burn for this reveal that, like, is it even going to be a big deal when they actually announce it for real? Because they've made it so obvious in so many little subtle, sideways ways.
Yeah. Only all the pieces are all scattered. Only we know.
Well, yeah, no, the only people that knew directly are dead. Aren't they all dead?
Well, I mean, at the same time, I just mean it's actually no. Anyway, although it depends on how they're going to handle it with the show, because wasn't what's his name Reed, Jojen and Mira's father, Howland Reed?
That's right.
Yeah. Remember when we saw Bran had flashback? Howland Reed was there with Ned when he went to talk to to rescue Lyanna and all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention there's apparently records of certain sorts of things happening.
Yeah.
What, Chooch?
Oh, and so Mira's going home.
Mm-hmm.
Although I had suspected we would probably never hear from her again. And
I hope we see her again.
Why do they really need that to put all the pieces together?
I just suddenly had the funniest idea, which would be something like, it just never comes up and all sorts of chaos happens in big wars and everything until it's all finally the big battle is done, the Night King's defeated, and everyone's kind of just standing around just taking in the enormity of the moment. And then Bran just says, "Oh, by the way, you guys know that Jon was actually a Targaryen?"
Did I tell you guys yet? I forget what day it is.
All days are one day.
What? You've been screwing Danny? Oh.
Oh, slipped in my mind.
So Danny does seem.
I said, so that's an ant.
Right.
Depends how close you want.
Yeah.
So Danny does seem surprised and intrigued by Drogon's reaction to Jon.
Mm-hmm.
And
I feel like that could be just an element of like when you're checking out a new prospective suitor or something, is like, well, does my dog like him?
Right.
Kids too.
That's very important.
First time it's happened.
So what? Now Ghost has to sniff her?
Tyrion.
Right.
No, Tyrion was allowed. Didn't was it Viserion that Tyrion took the collar off of?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but yeah, he had a similar moment though. So
that was more quid pro quo, but yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time,
Okay,
I feel
Clarice.
like it was a season or a scene where they were making a clear emotional connection between the dragon and character.
Which,
so
by the way,
this scene echoes that in a real way, I think.
Yeah, and by the way, that's exactly how I approach pretty much any animal. They come up to me, I let them come to me, I let them sniff me, and only then do I pet them. And Jon did everything right there. So if anybody's wondering, how do you pet a dragon? This is how you do it.
Or a dog that you don't know. Same kind of basic principle. More likely to be useful.
Danny asks Jon about the knife to the heart. Which he again dismisses. Oh, colorful language.
Davos gets carried away or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Gets carried away.
And she's got to be thinking, yeah, from all of my conversations with him so far, he really seems like a guy who's prone to overstatement and exaggeration. No, not really. Yeah. That guy is totally self-effacing and doesn't want to brag about things. Like that's
I like how he also doesn't want to lie.
Yeah.
He's like,
you know what I just realized though?
I want to not say it.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't want to lie, but he will. He'll further that lie. Yeah. But what I just realized is because in my notes I have that Jon looks more and more like Ned Stark. He's got the hair and he's growing it out all nice and greasy looking. And he's always wearing, you guys know the story about the IKEA rugs that the actors have been wearing, the costume or the show costume or let it slip, internet allegedly, that they used IKEA rugs. And so IKEA put out a pattern for how to make your own Game of Thrones like cape from one of their furry rugs. But John's always running around in that cape, and it's like everybody else is in like regular clothes, and he's got on like 16 layers. And it almost reminds me of like, did you ever see that Goths in Dark Weather? Hot Weather, Goths in Hot Weather. Sorry,
Amazing
my
blog.
brain. But it's almost like that because he's like always sullen in those big eyes at Dany now, and always in like the furs that nobody else is wearing. Brooding John likes to brood.
True. And Jorah returns.
Yes.
Reunited.
Coincidentally, just the timing. You know, everyone's showing up when.
Can't be killed. That guy. That guy just keeps on going.
Yeah.
And he gets the amazing hug, and all I could hear was totally worth it.
Worth it. All the dagger and the scraping.
Worth it.
How can you get someone to forgive you for trying to kill them?
God.
Just go get sick
Slayed.
and come back.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Technically, I think saying trying to kill her is an overstatement. That was kind of never what he did, and I don't think she even really thought of it that way. He definitely lied to her.
Yeah.
There was plotting to murder her, and he was involved. So the fact that he didn't run and tell her, I'd be salty too.
Well,
even this many years later.
I'm not defending what he did. I'm saying that it's a stretch between what he did and trying to kill her.
I was oversimplifying, but yeah.
Tomato, tomato. I'd be salty still.
John, here's Mormont. I served with your father.
Huh.
I'm
By the way, this is your family's sword, but
now.
You refused it back when you were being exiled, right? Technically, so it's good. We're cool.
God, I didn't even
keeping
think of
it
that.
anyway, but
I totally forgot about that. Oh my God.
It's a little different.
Wow.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about it. That's exactly
totally
what
forgot.
I thought.
I spaced it.
Well, he might not recognize it when it's sheathed because they reworked the handle, right?
Did they?
He's got the wolf on it now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So when it's ready for battle, he may be, recognize that pattern.
Claws too.
I don't know. It's a white killer, so a white walker killer. So I'd be holding on to. Although they do have truckloads apparently, or whatever, cartloads of dragon glass weapons.
That's one thing that I don't think they really made a point of. But certainly, John coming up from Dragonstone, I think we're meant to assume that this little Suicide Squad they put together all are armed with dragon glass.
Wait, which one's Harley?
Oh, well, Gendry's got the hammer, right?
I think it's the Hound. I think the Hound is totally Harley.
He is snarky.
He's been through stuff.
So, so Dany rubs up against Jorah's, not afraid of him anymore. And we head north of the
she
wall.
says.
Oh, yes. So strong and virile.
And there's total jealousy looks between him and John, and I'm already dreading them building that up.
I know.
It's a weird place to go since the show seems to be planning to confirm that they are aunt and nephew.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? It could be that all that stuff is a red herring and they're going to totally go some other way with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But boy, it does seem to be a weird thing to have those two tracks seemingly on a collision course.
Yeah.
Dany and the Hound forever. There we go.
So we had north of the wall, Bran getting his war gun.
Yeah.
Cool. I like the hopping from raven to raven.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
It was a neat effect.
Thousands of the dead marching on Eastwatch. And the Night King breaks the connection.
Yeah.
The spooky eyes.
So you got, what you failed to anticipate is that I am half scarecrow.
Dun, dun. So, so instantly DMs the Citadel and everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely that moment of like the maester happens to just be, I guess, standing there watching him do this, I guess. Because like he comes out of it and the maester's just standing there awkwardly like, you sent for me. Am I supposed to do something or what? And then I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I couldn't help but think like he says, we have to send ravens. And I'm like, didn't you just fly all the ravens up north of the wall?
Yeah, but he can't talk through them, so he can't. He's got a little message tied to their legs.
I know, but what ravens do you have left? If you just flew them all up there, I guess
There's
they're
always
different
ravens.
I think those
Those were
ravens
northern.
live there. I don't think those are Winterfell ravens.
Fair, but it's not like they made that obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So yes, send out the mass tweets.
Get the Archmeister, all the maesters talking about the message, and
Yeah.
Sam tries to back it up to no avail. I don't think, it's a nice sounding speech, but he really didn't go anywhere. He was using circular logic.
Yeah.
Well, if you tell everybody it's real.
Yeah.
Well, I think what he's frustrated with is that the Archmaester told him he thinks he's telling the truth.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the Archmaester basically said, I believe you, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And then when what he says to the other maesters is like, yeah, we don't really know what's true. And Sam's like, what?
Yeah.
You have a purely hypothetical, speculative, alternate suggestion, and you're treating that as though it has equal weight to the stuff that I have personal experience with, and you said you believed me about.
I forgot about that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm interested because I feel like we've got to be going to see more of the Archmaester, right? I mean,
I hope so.
Can't really be done with him at this point.
I love him. I want him back.
Well, I like him as an actor. I feel like the character has kind of been revealed as kind of not particularly helpful.
Well, I mean, no, not helpful in a way that we want him to be helpful, but I think in their position, their view of the world is whatever happens out there happens. We hold these walls strong. We hold this knowledge. We keep everything, the information consolidated. And so he may personally believe Sam, but when acting as the Archmaester with that little cap on, he may have a higher preponderance of evidence and clarification and such. And I think that's entirely possible because they don't look at things as what's going on in the world now. They look at it for the eons long view.
I honestly, like a couple of episodes ago when we first had him have that whole conversation with Sam, I was kind of on that same page of it was an interesting perspective for the character to have, this idea that, we do things the way we do things, and that's what has allowed us to last all of this time. And I think that that's interesting, and I like it from a world building standpoint, even if I think that we kind of, as the viewers, know that he's wrong in this case.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know because we've seen them, but I mean,
right. But the thing
it
is,
may be Sam's act of leaving that brings him around too.
Yeah, maybe. The other element though that made me withdraw my benefit of the doubt is where Sam leaves the room and they're like, isn't he the boy that just had his father and brother burned alive? And he's just like, oh yeah, I haven't told him yet. I don't have the heart to tell him. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, and you've been meaning to tell him, but you just haven't gotten around to it?
Yeah.
That's not okay. That's not okay.
So Paulette says, I still feel like the Archmaester is manipulating Sam by not telling him about his father and brother are toast and then shooting down his ideas. Is he pushing Sam into leaving?
Why does everybody think he's got some ulterior motive? Everyone just likes Jim Broadbent and they want him to be the nice guy.
Yeah.
It makes why would he do that?
Well, I could see
like,
where
why would
Because
you
I want
manipulate
him
Sam
to. Because I like Jim Broadbent. That's why.
there you go.
Is that not
There you
enough,
go.
Jim? My God, we're talking about dragons and dead people walking around.
Yeah.
And
That's what I
see where-
want. I want him to
where-
do something awesome.
Yeah, I do too. I would like it if the
bleh.
character was more useful and not apparently the guy who is not going to help.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it seems like that's what he's been so far. Now, because the show has kind of changed its nature, it may well be that we're just setting him up for the, redemptive moment where, he's going to finally do something helpful. And then we're supposed to say, "Oh, yay, at last." But certainly he hasn't earned it so far.
And
Oh, no.
Tilly says, doesn't that make Sam the new Lord? Yeah, technically, he is the
Yeah.
only remaining male,
Yep.
but there are two things working against there. One, he took the black, so he can't hold a house.
You broke up. We didn't
Oh.
get you.
Sorry.
I could hear it.
Where did you drop me?
You said, basically the way it came across for me is there are two things working against him. One is,
Okay. One is he took the black,
yes,
and so he can't have any rights to family or houses or anything like that. And two, in the training to become a maester. Now, that's kind of irrelevant when he left his training. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, also
much like
John
Aegon.
John is the king in the north after having done all that. So
Yeah, but he died. He served his life sentence.
But
So,
nobody knows that.
Well, some
yeah,
people know, but yeah, the black knows.
See, but that's more, we've talked about this. That's Game of Thrones now. The show just doesn't want to deal with that issue and it's going to ignore it.
Yeah. Well, so there is that.
With Danny mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
it's
With
gonna
little
it has to
Sam.
come up again, right? Too many.
Yeah.
She's asked about it too many times now to not get an answer eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So, Caitlin says, would
I
little
agree,
Sam
too.
have claim to the Tarly line? They believe the baby is Sam's, but I guess little Sam is seen as a bastard anyway. But if there are no trueborns, a bastard can, and a bastard with permission of nobility can also.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
if there are no trueborns, a bastard's definitely going to take it.
there was the whole business with Bolton, Roose Bolton legitimizing Ramsay, right? I mean, that can happen.
Yep.
You need there's protocols for it.
Yeah. And April O'Neil says, is anyone really going to take him to his oath at this point? And that's the thing about the show is in the books, this would be a sticky wicket. In the show, it's whatever
would
the
be
writers
killed.
want.
In the show, in the very first episode, I think it was it not the first? No, I guess not the first scene, but one of the first scenes we saw in the first episode of the first season was Ned beheading somebody that left the wall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He took the lie. He was an oath breaker, and you kill them on sight. They broke the oath. You don't think about it. Done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know what would happen to Sam. We know what would happen to John if he hadn't been able to squeak out with the King of the North excuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I really believe at this point, it's whatever the writers want to happen.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
And I think that they're doing a lot of what the fans want, though. I think they're showing, and they did it later in the episode too, twice. Also, they're throwing out fan candy at this point now, kind of like Bronn and Jaime popping up in the river. It's like, oh, don't think about it too much. Just just go for the ride. Look at the dragon, woo, And it's just, I'm totally willing. I've been waiting too damn long for this story to conclude, so I'm right there in it.
Well, the thing is, though, that even if that was the case, Sam's not interested in that right now. I mean, he's leaving something he really wanted, which was to become a maester, because he feels like there's higher priority things that have to be dealt with right away.
But it's a safe place for Gilly and little Sam to park it, though. I mean, I think that is something that he doesn't think can happen, because at any time his dad can show up.
He promised that he wouldn't leave her.
I
Remember?
know. I understand that. But if she changes her mind and decides it's too dangerous to take her toddler into, which I would have reservations about personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's not to the point where I don't like the show, but I'm getting pretty frustrated at this point with the show. Just basically nothing means anything if it interferes with the next plot point that they want to do.
Yeah.
You know, everything is up for grabs. They don't really have to. They don't want to put in the work to justify why it why it's okay, given that it conflicts with something else. The show is really kind of, it's done it a lot, and it's pushing my benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Okay, Christiana, this is interesting to me because I've always had a problem with not every single movie adaptation of a book that I've read or loved or hated or whatever. And you and I were talking one time years ago, at least 5 years ago, and and maybe we were even talking about Game of Thrones. We've talked about so much, I don't even know for sure. But you finally pounded it into my head, my thick skull, that you cannot judge the book and the movie the same because they're two totally different mediums that require different perspectives and things like that. And so I've been really holding on to that. And if you let go of that, I'm adrift.
I'm 100% not letting go of that. I am judging the show on its own merits. I'm not complaining that it's not the same as the books. I'm complaining that the show is not the same as the show. The show has established things, and now it's breaking those rules willy-nilly.
Well, I mean, and it's always going to happen in a sense. It's kind of like, Lord of the Rings, one of the complaints about the books is the whole time they talked about how they were walking from here to there. So they cut that down for the movies and stuff. So I'm just kind of really clinging to that, Christiana. I don't want to examine any of that closely.
What I'm saying is none of my complaints have anything to do with the show being different from the book.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
I know.
That was clear. We've got 6 seasons of...
Yeah. I mean, essentially what's
of not breaking the rules, and then all of a sudden,
I saw on Twitter today. It was something. It was talking about the pacing of Game of Thrones, and basically, it was a piece of paper where they were writing Game of Thrones in big letters, but then they run out of space for the end of Thrones, so it's all just like scrunched together on the side. And I'm like, that's exactly what's happening right now. Is
Agreed.
that they have the big set pieces that they want to do. So they are just mushing everything together to make those fit. And that's frustrating. And so, in past seasons, when we've had characters need to get from one place to another, it would take them 5 or 6 episodes to get there, and they'd have adventures along the way, and interesting things would happen, and world building, and characters would get to know each other and that sort of thing. Now everyone just shows up like they're teleporting anywhere they need to be at any given moment.
So I want to hear from each of you.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh.
Weird.
Oh, Christiana, wait.
I can hear you.
You're muted.
No, I'm not muted.
No. Yeah, I can hear her.
Okay.
I can hear Chooch and Viv too.
I'm not hearing anybody now. Is this me?
Oh no, it's Christiana.
I don't hear anybody now. Sorry. Hang on.
Woo! I was like, check in. Mute. Am I muted? I know I forget this space. I space it all the time.
So while Christiana set that up,
no, wait, what? I'm gonna lose what I was saying. What were we talking about? What were we talking about? I totally forgot what we were saying.
I was
pushing the timeline.
No, I know, Chooch.
You wanted to ask all of us a question.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Nettie. So do you think that this part of the problem here with them condensing all of these plot points and things that they're determined to hit on the way to the last episode, which is how many we got? 7, 9, 8 or 9 episodes left.
So 2 more after this in this season, and then what is it? 8 in the next.
Okay, 6. It was supposed to be 6 in the next.
Oh, 6 in the next.
Okay, so we have 8 more total episodes, and they're trying to get us to that point. And it seems like I don't know how many shows that we have this much warning, this far out warning that they're going to end, but they're trying to do this in a way that other series, when they know that they're ending, they condense things and they take a lot of criticism for their last season or whatever, because this doesn't make sense and this is out of character and this doesn't make sense. So I'm wondering how much of that is the showrunners hitting the wall that other shows have hit as they do final seasons. So what do you think, Christiana?
I think that that's probably exactly the problem, is that satisfying endings of really complex stories are very difficult. And especially you've got so many different characters that you want to try to wrap up. And then you have the dilemma that this show kind of started and became famous as something that deliberately subverted genre tropes. Right. And so now they're in a position of saying, well, do we stay true to that? Or do we try to come in for the satisfying, fulfilling landing that is going to go against that subversion, but will give people the good feels that they want?
And then in the interviews, I just say they subverted the subversion. They're working on another level.
Ooh.
They must be. What about you, Nettie?
Inception.
Game of Thrones Inception. No.
So there's. By the way, if you are available on Thursday nights to come join us live, I encourage you, because the chat is hopping every week. And there's a lot more than I can actually bring into the show. And we were talking a lot about how, why we feel that they're playing with their own rules. They're doing this. Pretty much everyone's saying that it feels rushed. And then there's arguments about, well, now we're in the area that Martin hasn't written, and are maybe these writers not as good. I really think that the writers they value different things than Martin does, and so they aren't so focused on the things that Martin would focus on, and it is very different. And I am fine with adaptations. But I do think that now that they have freedom, they're like, the training wheels are off. We can do whatever we want now. And they're doing what they want. Are they going to subvert tropes? Maybe, if that's what they want to do. It sounds like, oh, yeah, any writer is going to write whatever they want. Well, some writers feel compelled by their characters in different things. And it feels as if these writers are, this is what I want to see, so I'm going to write it. And sometimes that's awesome, because that's given us some characters that we never got a chance to see in the books interact. Yeah. And sometimes it's really frustrating because Euron is on 3 fronts at once and nothing makes sense. And that's going to be my go-to point of the egregiousness of them messing with their own rules. And I'm just going to come along for the ride and soak it up as I can. I'm trying to stay as objective as possible. I don't want to be the total grump, but apparently last week I was the grump, and I think I might be the grump this week. So
I was a little bit grumpy about this episode too. Now, that said, I mean, there were parts of it that I liked an awful lot, but yeah, just the show is getting more and more uneven in that way.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. But, at the same time, I love the parts I love.
Right.
It's just that, like, for a long time, I felt like the show was, there were the parts I loved, and then the other parts that were still pretty good.
Right.
And now I feel like increasingly there are portions of the show that feel like, playing with action figures and mushing them together, as opposed to telling a story.
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling, especially these last 2 episodes, I think. But like, especially the scene finale, the last scene at the episode, it breaks my brain to have all these people in the same room after they've all had their own isolated chapters and books and separate, and now they're all together and interacting, and they're all not getting along like I want them to, and it's just, it feels to me like it used to be like we would have the episode pacing that we had. It was like a normal show. And now we're at this breakneck pace trying to hit those plot points. And there's just every scene. It's not like there's a scene where you go, oh, that was just pleasant. Oh, there wasn't really anything in that, but oh, that was awesome. I don't know, maybe the Ed Sheeran episode from earlier in the episode. Don't yell at me, but despite all the drama, it was pretty simple episode. But every single scene, but every scene now feels like it's its own damn episode almost, and every episode feels like a movie, and altogether it's going to be like this huge vast thing, and I just feel like we could talk about it forever and still not cover all of the things that they're doing and the differences with the books. It's just, for my complaints, and I guess that's why I can't be the grump, is because I'm just really grateful that George is still alive. He's still writing it. I'm glad HBO picked up this series, and I think they're doing great with it. And I really can't wait to see the differences between the books and what they're doing here, because even if it is just what the showrunners want to cover, and if it's not, lore or whatever, it's still a really good ride if we can just get a little catch a breath scene between some of these huge gatherings of people,
Yeah.
really momentous stuff. What about you, Chooch? How do you feel about it? Like all of like the pacing and
It's definitely accelerated. It's definitely a detriment. And it seems to me like an avoidable detriment because, they set the schedule, they set how many episodes they were going to do, they set the budgets, right?
Exactly.
So it's self-inflicted. And
they could take more time with it if they wanted.
Yeah. HBO would be perfectly happy to have 3-4 more seasons.
We wouldn't have all those dragon scenes, though. I think we would have lost a lot on the budget to get that. But I think as far as keeping the continuity of the older show, like the older episodes, to what it is now, which is like literally, it feels almost like the last. It feels almost like the last 4 episodes of a season's series finale, where they're just like, oh, and these two meet and get together and being their friends now, or whatever. Kind of like, Orphan Black. We've been watching it kind of happen on Orphan Black as it ended its series. So it's just, it's maybe the problem is that they're stretching it out over 2 seasons instead of it just being part of 1 season. But again, that was their choice.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just endings are hard like that. In that sense, I totally have a lot of sympathy for the screenwriters. And I mean, like Stephen King, for example, is one of my favorite writers, but there's a lot of his books that the endings are pretty just kind of bonkers and kind of everything sort of falls apart. Like, there's several of his books where 80% of it is this finely tuned clockwork watch, and then everything just goes spring ring at the end. And endings are hard. And so obviously I think that if Martin thought ending it was easy, we probably would have had the book 6 and 7 already, right? The thing is
fair.
Yeah, what's great about this story, both in the book form and in the TV show form, is how complex it is with all of these fascinating characters and their different interrelationships and the complexity of the world building and all these moving pieces. And that's what's great about it. But that's really hard to wrap up, right? How do you give every single one of those characters a satisfying conclusion to their arc? How do you give, how do you wrap up all of these different, there's 5 or 6 people that would be satisfying to see kill Cersei, but we can't have all of them do it, right? And, it's just got all of these different moving pieces, and it's hard. So they're doing what they can with a very difficult challenge. And so any of my criticisms should be taken with that perspective.
Sure, yeah. We move on to the next scene.
Wait, sorry. I was waiting for the discussion to finish. So, Sam, Old Town, we're still there, yeah?
Yes.
So when Sam's walking out and they're talking about, all these prophecies and these things, and they mention Jenny of Old Stones and somebody else, which I missed, the other person. That Jenny of Old Stones is a thing. It's not a thing we've seen in the show, but it is a thing. And so this episode, I am dubbing the book fan theorists are screaming every 5 seconds in this episode. And this is one of them. Jenny of Old Stones was married to one of the Targaryens, and she is involved with the prophecy of the prince that was promised.
Oh, wow.
And that it would be born from the line of Prince Aerys and Princess Rayla, however you say that. And that's when King Jaehaerys heard the prophecy, and he arranged the marriage between two of his children. And that's kind of what started the whole Targaryens marry each other, because they know that this is supposed to have to do with their line. And so they, they're kind of, as we see in Greek myths, a lot of times when you hear a prophecy, you try to make that prophecy happen.
Mhm.
And or you try to make it not happen, and
Yeah.
you
make it
happen.
happen.
So it's one of those things. And so I was like, I know that name. I've heard that before.
Right.
I missed the other one, but okay.
Yeah, that was like Dolo, Bolo, something.
Also, Sam, in my notes, Sam is such a cutie. He's absolutely adorable.
He is, although he is certainly capable in his, to be fair, righteous anger against the Maesters, does manage to mansplain over a rather interesting historical bit of trivia.
Yes. Did we do that part? I'm sorry, I didn't know that we were going.
Not
ahead.
yet.
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
Not yet. First up is Dragonstone with two of our favorite conversers, Tyrion and Varys.
Yay.
And
I love
Varys-
there were parts of this episode that I didn't like, as I've mentioned. I liked this one. I liked the scene.
Yeah, it was really good. Tyrion's trying to kind of rationalize away what happened, and Varys is not letting him get away with it.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes, who are you trying to convince, Tyrion?
Exactly.
Well,
We know.
and I loved that what Varys was doing was, to an extent, he was not letting him get away with it, but it was also kind of empathizing that, like, yeah, man, been there.
Yeah.
It didn't go well, but I understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And
it
you
gives
need
us
to
a
find
little-
a way to make her listen.
Yeah. Because that worked for Varys.
Kind of Varys's job, right?
It gives us a little bit of idea of why did Varys stay with the Mad King for so long?
He tried to make a difference.
Yeah, he tried to make a difference, and he thought staying he could do more good. This is probably me putting more in there, but staying he could do more good than leaving. If he left, what would somebody else do? At least if he stayed, he could try to influence.
Yeah.
But just because you have good intentions does not mean that the impact and what actually happens is excused or forgiven or anything. It's still just as bad, and it doesn't matter all your good intentions. It doesn't matter what you meant to do or that you didn't actually do it. You were a collaborator. You were a co-conspirator. You were involved in what went down. You are guilty. And I thought that was really powerful.
Agreed. I think him not at that, while on the battlefields at the beginning of the episode, him not knowing if his brother was one of those, piles of dust or not, I think that brought all of that home for him, realizing that it could have been his brother that got roasted instead of the Tarleys. So it's, they're balancing a lot of kind of complex things and just jamming it in real fast.
Well, right. Yeah. And like, even if he knows Jamie was survived, which he apparently does later. So whether he knew at that time or not, he's also got to be thinking how, like, he hates his sister, but he knows that the rest of the Lannister men are just doing what they're told, right? He doesn't have any personal vendetta against average Lannister soldier.
Right.
And a whole bunch of them just got burned alive in a really horrible way. And, it's one thing to say, yeah, wars happen, people are going to die, and this is an expected consequence. But it's still kind of horrible to contemplate, and you try to take steps to minimize the amount that needs to happen. And so it's definitely just a case, this just comes back to that earlier scene again of where he's, they made their original plan for a very good reason. And even though that failed for reasons that are somewhat beyond their control, if they're going to go the other way now, they have to be prepared for the consequences of that, because those consequences, of course, were why they originally planned to do something else.
Mhm. Yep.
Very true. I was thinking as they were talking when he said, "You have to find a way to make her listen." I was thinking that sounds like a perfect job for Jorah. And of course, I was proven totally wrong. Like, I expected him to okay, hear what's going on, and then oh,
Yeah.
really see.
I picture Jorah going, "Oh, you want to burn people? Go right ahead. Whatever, Michael Easy. You took me
Yeah.
back. I'm so happy."
Yeah.
True.
Hmm.
True. And they.
At the same time, I can't help but wonder how Davos feels about that. I mean, obviously he wasn't there; they didn't ask him, but
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. Him mentioning his son's being burned,
well, for that
That
matter,
was-
John. I mean, John and Davos together banished
Mhm.
Melisandre, and that's the whole reason Melisandre didn't want to meet with
Yeah.
them, is because we parted on bad terms. And now, I mean, to be fair, I think John is pragmatic enough to recognize the difference between enemy combatants who are leaders setting an example, who did take up arms against you and were offered a choice. We talked about all of that elements, but there's still a substantial gap between that and burning your own innocent daughter to please a god that
Right.
may not.
I do have a problem with one aspect of something that's been said a lot in the reviews and the blog posts and stuff that I've read, and that is that they were enemy combatants that took up arms against Dany. No, they marched to Highgarden and they wiped that house off the map. And then Dany came and started breathing fire on them. So they did not march to take out Dany.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying there's any further debate needed or anything like that. But for clarification, those soldiers are slaves now because they were at Highgarden, not at Dragonstone.
Counterpoint. They chose to side with Cersei.
Oh, well, that of course.
But hang on though. They chose to side with Cersei going against Olenna for the specific reason of not wanting to side with Dany. That was why they made that decision.
A big portion of those troops, I mean, they weren't all Lannisters. There were Lannisters there, but a big portion were Highgarden troops, which were already pledged to Daenerys's cause. So there's that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm talking of certainly. I think any of the average soldiers, are kind of just cannon fodder, alas, in this type of scenario. But Tarly himself had, I mean, in his whole decision-making process, it was laid out pretty clearly that he doesn't like Cersei, and he doesn't like the way the Lannisters do business. And he is kind of opposed to swearing fealty to them, especially since it would go against his own leash. But what changes his mind? This dragon lady from the east is going to come in with all her savages and eunuchs. You don't want to be on their side, do you? And that changed his mind. So it's true that he had not actually led armies against Dany yet, although they did fight back in this attack. We could say that's defending themselves, but he very specifically chose sides with the intention of not being on her side.
Sure.
And not only that, but she did just basically give him the opportunity to join her side, and he said he would rather be burned to death. So
I think the basic idea is that there is a difference between killing people that you were fighting against and killing kids.
Yeah. Especially when it's, it's a straightforward, pragmatic thing of you are a leader of my enemies and I've got to do something with you, versus a kid who shouldn't have even been there. But yeah. So, I mean, I do not feel sorry for Randall Tarly, which is not the same thing as thinking that Dany did the right thing.
Before we move off this scene with Tyrion and Varys, I do love the whole thing, the message, what is it? And he's like, it's a sealed scroll and wax for the King of the North.
Yeah.
You know, it's completely sealed, can't get in. All right, what's it say?
Nothing good.
Nothing
Mhm.
good. Yeah.
Which we find out John gets to read the good news, bad news.
Well, right. Yeah, that's a hell of a scroll to receive. By the way, 2 of your siblings that you thought were dead are actually not, but also
They're definitely marching this way. And they're close. But Tyrion comes with the idea, hey, why don't we just capture a White Walker?
yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense. Of course, Cersei's not going to go to the wall, but it wouldn't make sense for her to send somebody she trusts to go see them.
They're in a difficult position because on the one hand, I know that I wouldn't be the only person online to say that I don't like the plan. And I don't necessarily think it's a good plan, but I don't really know what the better one is.
Yeah.
So here's my question, though. I can't remember, and I didn't remember to look it up, but they had a White's hand in season 1, didn't they? The one that they talked about, they attacked, and they sent it to the goddamn Citadel in season 1, didn't they?
What happened is that by the time it got south, it had decayed and it wasn't moving anymore.
Yeah. I think and that's I think what happened in the book. I don't think in the show they even really dealt with
it's
it
one of the things that they mentioned in the afterword. We mentioned last week that we think that when they talk about things that are in the show in the afterword, it's usually because they're kind of lacking in those parts.
Yeah. Well, so I think back in season 1, they did do that to send the hand down because that was why what's his face Thorne was away for a while and wasn't with everyone when they went north of the wall. It was because he was the one that was sent down. That's also where he met Janos Slynt and they became best buds.
Yeah.
But the way they handled it in the show, as I recall, was there was a brief mention to the people in charge. I don't even remember who it was at that time, whether it was still Robert or if it had already been Joffrey when they dealt this. But it was essentially presented as, oh, and there's a Night's Watch who says he's got some hand thing to show us. Who cares?
Yeah.
And that was kind of all it was dealt with.
Yeah. And Mike says they did mention what happened to the hand in this episode. So there we go. Fixing that up. Yeah. Sorry, I just
go ahead, Chooch. We'll let Chooch go.
I was just moving on with the rest of the scene. Majora volunteers. Dany looks super bummed. She just got him back.
Yeah.
And she seems quite moved by Jon's speech. I guess that's the romance spark the writers have been going for.
I guess.
It seemed like a significant
Well, what's for
reaction.
Sorry,
Good.
We see this. I wrote this down later on, but the only real spark that I am seeing with Dany and Jon, and the one thing that I can see on Dany's side is I think she could be interested in Jon because he is the only man that is not trying to bed or wed her in her entire life. Because he's not made any gestures. He's not giving her moon eyes.
Tyrion isn't either, though. And he's not cute, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, if it's okay with the nephew, why isn't it okay with the possible brother? This is what I'm saying.
Possible brother. I think that but many times when she meets another king, another leader, another whatever, all they want to do is marry her because then they can have part of her power. And Jon's not looking for that. And that's the one spark that I'm seeing.
And so far, he's not trying to tell her what to do. He's standing up for his beliefs and his people, which she can respect.
Yeah. I do feel like currently they're writing Dany almost like she's two different people, depending on whether Jon's in the room. Now, that
Yeah.
said, that could actually just be a creative choice, which is intended to signify the chemistry to us by showing how differently she acts around him. That's a real thing potentially, but she definitely acts different around him than she does elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And she doesn't come and say, "Oh, I just burned the shit out of a bunch of people." He says, "I have less enemies today than I had yesterday."
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so while it does strike me as a real problem that what Jon is proposing, that Dany sends her troops up to the north, would leave Cersei in a position to, retake ground and cause a bigger problem there. And so, if they could convince Cersei to cooperate, that would be useful. But getting a white to and bringing it down strikes me as such a long shot in both elements. One, that you're going to be able to go and do that, and that you're actually sending all your big guns together on an incredibly dangerous Suicide Squad mission. And also doing all of that on the basis of the idea that she's going to care.
Yeah.
or hold to her word
Yeah.
Yeah.
to an armistice.
The plan has so many flaws, and that's why I was, having trouble speaking earlier, because there's just so many things wrong with it. But I'm gonna let Paulette and Tibby talk for me. Paulette, my opinion on this is get a White Walker plan is that it sounds like something from a sitcom, and Tibby says bringing a zombie into a city never turns out well. It's too bad no one has invented photography yet. And yeah, that's there's just so many things that can go wrong, and I know that this is being set up to. This is why Jon is going beyond the wall. Sorry, I can't speak. But he's not actually. I don't think he's coming back with a White Walker in a bag or anything like that. I don't imagine that an entire White Walker is not going to decay when it comes further south. Although maybe that'll be the thing. Like, we'll discover, oh, well, they can only kind of hang out around the wall, and after a little while, they didn't tend to decay. I don't know. Whatever. I'm trying not. I keep saying this, but I'm trying not to invest too much in anything because I don't know the rule book.
Yeah.
I think that it is a way to do a couple of things. From sort of the mercenary screenwriting perspective, it's a way to have a big action set piece with the Army of the Dead without having them be south of the wall yet.
Mm.
And it is a way to put characters we like in jeopardy. It is a way to put characters we like in unusual combinations that we wouldn't expect. It is potentially a way to give us some drama by killing off a character we like or two. And it's all of that is the justification for the mission. But then the larger element, I think, that what we're setting up here is the idea that Cersei is going to meet with Dany and something could happen there. So getting those two in a room together is another element that they have to say, well, what possible justification could we have for why those two would literally be in a room together and not fighting? So, I think that's what they're going for. And their solution feels awkward, but again, is like to accomplish all of those things, which seem like fine goals to have in the storytelling. I don't know what a better plan would be.
Yeah, they don't have many options.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Head north to Winterfell, where the Northern Lords are pissed off that Jon left.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how long they've been complaining.
Grumble,
Probably
grumble,
since he
grumble.
left.
Right?
Grumble, grumble. Yeah. Well, they complained when he said he was leaving.
Yeah.
It's like they said at the time that they were not happy about that. So, that it makes perfect sense to me. And I am hoping that Arya is not falling for what's going on here. But I'm worried that she is.
It was a good bit of deception there on Littlefinger's part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I keep telling myself is that she spent how many episodes, how much of that season or more with the faceless men, and she was constantly being quizzed on lying and telling the truth and being able to spot deception and things like that. So I'm counting on that carrying some weight.
Yeah.
So you're actually jumping ahead, but we can combine these scenes if we want.
Well, so we have the scene of Arya challenging Sansa after the meeting, right? And she does actually use her faceless man lie detector ability with Sansa, and I think that seems to me to be what they're going to lean on to justify whatever decision Arya makes. But and we can see that, and it makes sense that we could imagine that Sansa's got some dark thoughts where she is kind of thinking, what if Jon never comes back? I mean, I have to be prepared for that eventuality, right? And I don't know, maybe parts of that don't sound so bad. And I don't know, I mean, it's not that I don't want him to come back. It's just that if he didn't, then that puts me in a good situation. And so, like, Arya is kind of saying, of course you're having those thoughts, don't pretend that you're not, but at the same time, so I'm stuck on a detail that's from later, but if you guys want to talk more about
this scene kind of bugged me, just in that, they're pushing for their, obviously Baelish and the plot is pushing for there to be a wedge, but it seems the Plutonium is pushing for a wedge too, because I don't know, in a way it seemed to fall back on sibling rivalry a little bit. But, you always like the nice things or whatever because they make you feel better than everybody else. So I could see that. I don't know. I was conflicted. It seemed kind of contrived that they're really pushing this, that she's going against Sansa, or at least being convinced to go against Sansa, where it didn't quite feel natural.
So one of the things I actually like that there was a little bit of this animosity, because Sansa and Arya always had that animosity.
Yes, exactly.
And for them to just be not fighting and not having any conflict, I think would be more suspicious.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't have a problem with that. And I liked the way that Arya worded it. You always like nice things. You don't want people to think you do, but you do. And I thought that was, I don't know, it felt very natural to me. As
and Sansa did invite it. Say what's on your mind, right? Don't just.
Well, of course, I mean, but that was prompted by Arya being totally passive aggressive about it.
Well, yeah.
I think the thing that helps them with their trying to convince us that there's animosity there and that, Arya is going to fall for Littlefinger's obvious little plot, obvious to us, is that Arya was in the tent with Tywin, or not the tent, but she was at a Harrenhal as the cupbearer for Tywin and saw Littlefinger there, and she knows what the Littlefinger conspired against her family. And so I think
I forgot that she met him there.
Yeah. And there's a question of whether or not, like, some people say that when he saw her, he recognized her, but decided to keep his mouth shut. And other people think that he just didn't recognize her because she was going as a boy then.
I remember we debated that because there was a bit of her deliberately saying, oh, shoot, he might recognize me.
Yeah.
Did he? He kind of gives her a double take, but it wasn't clear.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. And so she does not trust him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. And the fact that he is there whispering in Sansa's ear 24/7, that's not going to make her feel warm and fuzzy at all about what Sansa's motives are. Because she hasn't said to Arya, I know what, she hasn't clarified with Arya the way she has with Brienne, that I know exactly what he wants and I'm watching him, kind of a thing that she had done a couple episodes ago. So I don't think Arya knows.
Although she did, when Arya was right there with Bran when it was the first scene with them reunited, where Bran talked about he got the dagger, and Sansa was immediately like, "Oh, he wouldn't have given that to you without wanting
Unless
something
he wanted.
in return."
That's true. That's true.
So Paulette says, it's so obviously a double cross that it might be set up for a double cross that leads to Littlefinger's downfall, or not. Who knows? That's what I'd like to see.
That's what I'd like to see as well.
We'll see.
This is a crossroads for this show, right? Yeah. This is a turning point example of, is it going to tell the kind of story that it used to tell, or is it going to tell the kind of story that it seems like it's starting to tell? One is the way where it subverts the genre trope, which is that we want these characters to get along and be united against the bad people, and to have Littlefinger get his comeuppance and so on. Which I say that way as though it's not what I would prefer. Because obviously that's kind of what I want to have happen, but it is the more sort of conventional wish fulfillment type of story, right? As opposed to subverting the trope, which would be to say, what if the Starks just fall apart all over again, and it's all down to Arya is unable to let go of her adolescent sibling rivalry because, due to all the trauma she has suffered in the intervening years, she has never emotionally processed past all of that. She has repressed all of her emotions since then, and so now that she is opening herself up even a little bit, it's just returning back to old patterns, and so she is going to end up forming a wedge with Sansa, and everything's going to fall apart as a result. Like, that's the sort of story that I feel like would have happened in the show that we had during seasons 3 and 4, right?
So can we talk about what was written on the scroll?
Yeah,
sure.
So I don't know if you guys caught what was on the scroll, but it is not a fake scroll. It's the scroll that Cersei made Sansa write way back in like season 1.
Yeah.
Where it's Sansa's hand saying, "My father was a traitor. He tried to steal the throne. Joffrey's being good, yada, yada, yada."
Yeah.
And that is the scroll. When she was following him around, I didn't suspect anything. And I thought it was, this is something that he sent during the whole stabbing thing, the attempted suicide, the cat's paw dagger thing. And I thought he was trying to get rid of one of those. And then it was no, this is something that might look damning to Sansa. And I think what will determine whether or not this double cross happens, or if Arya is convinced, is if Arya can tell if her sister is lying in the scroll originally.
Right.
And I think that'll be the test. And I don't know that she will, because it's very different to read a lie in hand.
But she grew up.
They
grew up in school together, so if anybody would be able to detect that, it would be a sibling, because they had tutoring together and stuff. So that's an interesting theory.
I don't know that it's a matter of being able to like use lie detector abilities on the scroll so much as if they ever actually talk about it, all Sansa has to say is, "I was a hostage to a monster and they made me write that against my will," which is true.
I totally agree with you, but I think it's interesting. I think Nettie's aspect is interesting as well, because she would probably have some tells that she would be able to pick up on. So I think that would lead credence to it. So I think that Littlefinger, if it works out the way we all hope it works out, Littlefinger kind of damned himself, because he put the evidence in Arya's hand that she was being used by Cersei at that time.
But if it doesn't work out the way that we want it to, and she is fooled by it, I can see her not asking Sansa about it. If she believes it, I can see her not asking Sansa.
Well, yeah, because aren't we also led to believe that they haven't ever really shared their stories yet? They seem kind of like unknowing about what the others have been up to. Like, you would think that that's something, if they had sat down and had a sister catch-up meeting, that she would have said, "Oh my God, it was so terrible. They even made me send a letter to her." I mean, that seems like the thing that would come out in a late night sister session, but they've never been normal sisters, I guess.
Yeah, they're not really forthcoming.
Yeah. See, here's what I don't like about this is a story development, though, and it's not just worry that, oh no, Arya might fall for it and be fooled and go against Sansa, because I don't want that to happen, and I'd be disappointed and think that that's not good writing, just because even with their various motivations, that there's just too obvious a very clear and present explanation for why she would write that letter, especially since they previously had the conversation of, did you actually kill Joffrey like it was rumored? And she says, no, but I wish I had. And if she's definitely able to use her lie detecting ability then, right? And that's 100% true. And so, like, it, to my mind, I cannot possibly imagine Arya actually being fooled by that. So as long as she's not actually fooled by that, okay. If she is, I'll be very disappointed in the writing. But the other element of that is, what exactly is Littlefinger trying to accomplish here? He's trying to turn he supports Sansa. He wants Sansa to be with him. Sansa is the one he's trying to keep in power and be impressed with him and pleased with him. Why would he try to turn Arya further against her?
So that he can maintain his alleged control over Sansa. If Arya and Bran are there, like when Jon was there, it's going to keep Sansa thinking of Sansa or whatever, thinking like about, the Starks and the family line. And if it's just Littlefinger's focusing the whole thing, at least in my point of view, his constant beat have been, yes, but my troops are for you. Those troops are for Jon. Those troops are for so-and-so. Those troops, I'm here for you. And no one is giving you. He's like feeding her ego. And we're supposed to believe that she's not falling for it. But in order for that to work, that kind of Svengali bullshit, he needs to be the only like really solid voice in her ear. And so driving a wedge between her and her siblings only benefits Baelish.
I love what Tibby says in the chat. Typical abuser behavior, isolating the victim from the family.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess. I suppose. I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like I want Littlefinger to, like, his whole clever ploy of being able to stealthily trick Arya into secretly reading the note that he set up for her to read, and being pretty clever and sneaky about that. I feel like I want his plan to be more clever than this, because I just feel like it's one thing to say he does want Sansa to feel like he is the only one she can rely on because everyone else is turning against her. But I feel like he watched Arya be an incredibly expert fighter and seemed impressed by that. He's aware of growing tension already, and maybe he's trying to exacerbate that. But like Arya, like, to the extent that he knows the actual dynamic here, Arya is already very much a supporter of Jon. And so if he's going to try to drive the wedge, it's only going to strengthen Jon's side.
I have a thought. So this scroll is, we've decided it's really hard to believe that Arya is going to fall for it and it's going to make her hate her sister. What if he did that so that the whole sneaking it around and hiding it thing was all Baelish wanted Sansa to hear, so that when she confronts him, he's like, well, I didn't want anyone to find that damning evidence because I knew you were forced to write it. And it's like all about him proving that he's an ally. And so he's not bragging. He's forcing it to come out.
I definitely think it's step one of a plan. I think it's
definitely step one of a plan.
I think it's a legitimate breadcrumb. And it could be like part one of a trap, that like he set the hook, or he laid the bait, set the hook kind of thing.
Well, and I guess the goal is, now that I think about it, the goal is probably, Luna's coughing over there. The goal is probably to try to exacerbate the feelings of discomfort that Sansa is feeling about Arya. And isn't it weird how she can fight and she acts strange now and she talks about killing people? Like, maybe you should send her away.
Maybe
And
she should
so-
go to the wall. Oh.
Yeah, so trying to get Arya to leave, it might be the goal. And
Okay.
so I guess I can see that, but it just, and I know that his whole thing, like, it's not like he has ever really been as much of a master planner as he thinks he is. And I know chaos is the ladder is kind of his whole thing, but I don't know. This just felt like a weird sort of flailing maneuver to me. So I don't know. I was kind of like, I thought that the scroll was going to be something different that wasn't such an obviously transparent thing. And so that's, I guess, my worry. And maybe that's really where all my concern is coming from, is if the show tries to make us think that Arya really believes it, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Oh yeah, that would be total bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else there? Move on to King's Landing. Tyrion and Davos are able to smuggle in.
Yeah.
All right. So those of you who weren't spoiled, did you know what his business in Flea Bottom was?
Nope.
I didn't until when we cut away from Tyrion and Jaime and we see blacksmithing.
That's when I
immediately
knew.
gasped and I said, "No!"
I went, Gendry, oh my God.
Yeah, so I did guess before we saw him, but not until we cut away to that scene where he's going to the blacksmith shop.
Same.
Yeah,
It never occurred to me. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but I was like,
Yeah.
what's he doing? Yeah, I did not.
And
Oh my God.
so that's a perfect example of something where I feel like the show is doing a lot of fan servicey sort of plot contrivance stuff in order to make fans happy, like that sort of, with an intent of making fans happy is, I guess, what I should say. But this is an example of one that was entirely successful, in my opinion.
And I was more than happy, and I loved every minute of it. And
Yes.
I'm ready to go. Let's go. I've been waiting for you.
And
Thought you might still be rowing.
And I love that tip of the hat to all the fan theories. That's what everybody has said. Yep.
I wrote
Everybody.
it down. I wrote that down. I absolutely squeed at that because it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
They are
it was
listening to
perfect.
the fans. They are listening to the
Oh, yeah.
fans. It's so adorable. I just like, why couldn't we get that kind of back and forth and chemistry with Dany and Jon? It's Davos and Gendry. And it was just like, oh, I love
Davos
them
is
together.
amazing. It's because
Yeah.
Davos is amazing. That's
But
why.
Dany's amazing. Jon's amazing. Maybe they're just not
Davos has
amazing
great
together.
chemistry with everyone. He has great
Yeah.
chemistry with
He
everyone.
really does. He's the best.
Well, and here's the thing is that, like, this is not a criticism from me to Emilia Clarke, the actress playing Dany,
Mm.
but the way they are writing Dany this season makes it difficult for her to have chemistry with anyone because they're telling her you are the Ice Queen unless you are the slightly awkward Ice Queen.
Right.
Yeah.
You get to smile at Jorah. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
And make sure your eyes are really
Oh.
big and wet looking.
You know, we didn't really talk about it last week, but the bit with Missandei where she's kind of like, things happened, like that. That was like the most alive we've seen her this whole season.
It's so true. That is so. It's kind of yeah, that's true. That was a great scene. Oh,
Like, I like Daenerys in the aggregate.
yeah.
She's not been especially likable this season.
Yeah.
So with Jaime and Tyrion,
But let's.
I was very. Oh, sorry.
Hold on. We
Keep us straight, Chooch.
well, so yeah,
Come
so the other little kind of notes that he was packed and ready basically, and he prefers a hammer, which makes sense because he's a smith. But
As
daddy-
Mike says, hashtag Baratheon.
Yeah.
Wait, Chooch, what were you saying?
that daddy preferred the warhammer,
Yep.
which
And
he may not have even known, or probably didn't know.
Mm.
oh, I think everyone knew.
That was in songs.
Robert was Robert.
Well,
was
and
known.
he says later, he talks specifically about your dad and my dad were supposed to be friends. That sounds like he knows the stories.
And as Paulette pointed out, that hammer has a stag on it, no less.
Oh wow, really?
I didn't notice that at all,
did
but
not.
that is an awesome
Yeah, me neither.
detail.
Interesting. So this made me think when we find Genry. So there is a list of other forgotten characters, which Genry for a long time for me was at the top of that list.
Yes,
Yeah.
you teased me about this earlier. I want to hear it, Chooch. Give it to me now because you wouldn't tell me earlier.
Well, and it's getting shorter, obviously, and there's a lot of, that I don't think are realistically going to come back. But first on the top, we talked about a little bit. I think last week was Ellen Payne. Maybe it was the week before, and I could see him coming back.
Yeah.
There's Kinvara, the Red Priestess.
Oh, right.
Which I don't know that we'll necessarily see.
Oh, you know what though? I'm sorry. Go back. Ellen Payne has basically kind of been replaced by the Mountain at this point. Qyburn and the Mountain both, right? He kind of. I mean, they aren't really executing anyone. They're torturing people and leaving them in cells forever.
Well, Ellen Payne kind of eventually disappears off the stage, so to speak, in the books too, doesn't he? I mean,
he becomes Jaime's training partner, which Bronn took over.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And is that the last time we see him in the books?
Well, no, he's been following Jaime around, but he's sort of a weird non-presence because he doesn't talk. So
right.
He when he laughs, the tongue flaps, and it's that.
Yeah.
Noise.
Dude knows stuff though. He knows where all the bodies are buried.
He's basically just used as a sounding board for Jaime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gotcha. There's Dario. He's hanging out.
Yep.
I don't think we ever see him again.
I don't think so. Robin Aaron, which could
I feel
come
like
into play.
Yeah, he's got to show up again. We have to pick up that thread at some point.
Yeah, because last time we saw him was season 6, and he was being mentored by one of the other families of the Vale, right?
By the dude who's at Winterfell now.
Yeah.
I half expect him to be killed by Littlefinger at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But the whole reason that any of the people of the Vale were following Littlefinger at all was because he kind of had Robin in his pocket.
Right.
But at the same time, those same people seem to have switched their allegiance to Sansa at this point anyway. So Littlefinger's kind of incidental at that point. And I mean, here's the thing, just to go back to Littlefinger just briefly, is I totally 100% buy that he's increasingly desperate because he is finding himself being made redundant in every possible way.
Yep.
And so that's bad for him. And so he has got to do something. And so I do like that he is going to do something. Also, just one note, since we went back to this anyway, Mike points out that one element that could be the detail that they return to later. Like, if what they do is Arya pretends to fall for it, but then we get the reveal where she turns it around on Littlefinger and demonstrates how she knew that Sansa wouldn't have been being honest in this, is the detail that the letter, had Sansa referring to Arya as her darling sister, and Arya could just say, Sansa would never say that if she was writing this with sincerity.
Yep.
And so I can totally see that being a detail that comes back.
Yeah. And Mike says that we have no idea what he was talking to the woman at the woman. He gave something to a woman with a basket, and so there's something there that we don't have a direct connection.
I want there to be more to his plot because right now I don't think it's enough.
Right. Totally.
But I'm happy to move on.
Next on the list, Salador San was Davos's pirate friend.
I love him.
Yeah.
One of the only African-American actors in the show that is kind of...
Danny needs a fleet. Just saying.
Yeah.
We got Jaqen Hagar, which probably we'll never see again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some little grace note with him. Just because it's so easy for him to show up disguised as anyone else, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see.
Mario nod.
Although
he'll show up as Syrio.
We did get a nice conclusion to his relationship with Arya, though, when she left the House of Black and White. So I feel like we don't need to see him again. There's not like a dangling thread that needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I really hope you're wrong about Dario. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to miss him if we don't see him again.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
No, you're allowed. I'm just.
He was so. Oh no, I'm not going to derail a conversation by pointing out that he was not on Orphan Black. Oh wait, that's a spoiler for another show. Shit.
He never came. Oh yeah. Sirio, who's likely dead, and who may have been.
He's checking Hagar.
Might have been him anyways, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Illyrio Mopatis and Pentos, who popped up early and later, and he seems like he's just somebody needs a bed, so he pops up.
Remind me, when we had Tyrion going to Essos for the first time, did we have him show up with Illyrio again in the show? I couldn't remember.
Him. I think they just mentioned that's where they were, but I don't think we actually saw him.
Oh, all right.
I can't remember.
They were at his estate.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
That's where the books and the show really start to blur, because it's those middle seasons that you don't think of as often. Anyway.
And last but not least, where's Sir Bounce?
Oh, Sir Pounce. Oh no. Oh no, he jumped off the wall too.
I had the sad thought that I was actually not going to say, which was that Tom had him in his vest when he jumped. But
it's just you and me, buddy.
Sorry.
All right. So let's see.
Anyway, so we didn't talk about Jaime and Tyrion.
Tyrion, yeah. So Bronn.
I was totally excited. I was totally excited that Bronn had the hookup.
Ladies, you were driving me nuts. He keeps starting to say something. You both talk. Chooch, what were you going to say?
Essentially introducing the scene, Bronn tricks Jaime into meeting with Tyrion, which is clearly why he couldn't be killed by a dragon. He had an important link to make.
I apologize for talking over you, but because we talked about Davos and Gendry already, which happens after that scene, I thought we might be skipping it.
Gotcha.
That's it. So
I have a slight delay. So I don't mean to talk over people. It's just
it's hard.
It was a really great contentious scene, Tyrion trying to kind of explain his case, like Dad was gonna kill me. He knew I was innocent. And the Jaime's natural anger. Overall, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was another perfect example of a scene that felt like it belongs more with the older tradition of the show, which is denying us the standard genre trope version of the scene where they're able to look past all of the stuff that's happened between them because we know they really love each other. And where the stuff that has happened is actually like really big deal stuff that's important and makes a difference. And it's also, he's not here to reconcile. He's here for business. So, and it's, but it's all very contentious, and it actually falls into kind of the same theme as with Sansa and Arya, this idea that it's hard with family to not fall into those old sorts of patterns.
Yeah.
But I didn't think they ever had that kind of pattern. They were always, seems to me, they were always super, super close and supportive.
Snarky, though.
Because they were bouncing off Cersei.
Yeah.
But they never got to have any kind of resolution or closure to this stuff that happened.
True, yeah.
I just love anytime Bronn and Tyrion are on screen together, even if they're not, they didn't say a word to each other. But I just love seeing Bronn and Tyrion because there's some mischief that's going to happen even for the 5 seconds that they were in the room together.
Yeah.
There was some side business.
I kind of wanted to see some of that conversation, though. I mean, I suppose the show wanted it to be a surprise that's really what Bronn was doing with Jaime. But at the same time, I feel like the last time Tyrion saw Bronn was when Bronn was saying, look, I told you that if someone paid me more, I would do what they said and I would leave you and I would give you the opportunity to pay me to beat the price, but you can't because you're in jail. Sorry. I mean, that's the last time they saw each other. So I feel like I would be interested in that conversation picking up, but
when I saw Bronn had the hookup, I was really excited. And I just assume, because Bronn always says, whoever's going to pay me, I'd be more than willing to, sure, okay, I'll do a favor for you. That might work. You're worth the woman that's got a dragon, okay. And, Tyrion knows all of these secret passageways because of Bronn, and Bronn knows them too. And, when he was Hand. And I'm pretty sure that Tyrion had a very easy way to get in touch with Bronn before getting in touch with Jaime, and it all worked out, pretty well. Tyrion and Jaime, to me, were, always best friends, and then they have this giant rift. So I thought that their interaction was pretty good, and I really liked that whole I'm not going to forgive you for just killing our dad.
Yeah.
even with the circumstances, and now you're against our family. Yeah.
And it was from, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
It was such a betrayal too from Jaime's perspective, is because, I mean, not only would he not want Tyrion to kill their dad, but Tyrion specifically took advantage of Jaime sticking his neck out to set Tyrion free and used that opportunity to kill their dad.
Yeah.
And so it was, I did this huge favor for you because I love you, and you repaid me by murdering our father, which was a completely optional mission.
Yeah.
In fact, you put yourself in more danger to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we get where Tyrion was coming from, but from Jaime's perspective, that's a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah.
So I thought that conversation, even though it kind of denies us some of the catharsis we might have been hoping for, it felt real in a way that some of the more contrived aspects of the show haven't, and that's part of, I think, what made me feel it felt more like the older style of the show.
Yeah.
Which was
So I also think that this is one of those fan things. This is something fans have been wanting since the last meeting. We want to know, okay, well, what are they going to say to each other when different truths come out? And so this was really neat. And I think that it's also really interesting how Jaime presents himself. I'm still very upset with you, and then he goes to talk to Cersei, and he's more defending him. So I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I also think it's really interesting that Tyrion counts on Jaime before he ever sees him. And I think that's pretty telling.
Yeah.
Of their relationship.
To not turn him in, you mean?
To not turn him in, that he's going to be okay, that's how he can get through to Cersei. The first thought he has is, oh, we'll go through Jaime. Because
he'll talk to me.
No matter how much he hates me, he's not going to kill me on sight.
Even though Jaime points out very specifically that's kind of what he said he would do. I loved the exchange of Jaime pointing that out and then Tyrion just kind of going, it'll take you a really long time with a sparring sword. That was just a great exchange. I thought that was really good. I liked that a lot.
That's what
I was expecting a short joke, but yeah, that was better.
Yeah.
But what was just really kind of made that whole scene electric is just this idea that these two have so much that if they could just have the time, they could probably hash this stuff out. They each have stuff that they want to say to each other. We feel that they could probably reconcile, but there's just no time.
Yeah.
Tyrion cannot stay very long. He needs to deliver a message and get out, and it's a message that Jaime doesn't want to hear, and he's not going to want to deliver to Cersei, but he's going to have to, and it's business, and it's important, and that has to take priority over any of their emotional stuff. So that means they don't have time for the emotional stuff, and that's frustrating for them both, which is what gives the scene such energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. Jaime does deliver that message.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in with Cersei consulting with Qyburn.
Yeah.
So the Army of the Dead's coming, and Tyrion's gonna have proof.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Did we discuss them leaving the beach?
No.
Not yet. They haven't
Not
left yet.
Okay, go ahead.
We go to Flea Bottom first.
All right. Did I? Oh, right, because that was the second part of the Davos thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember to go back there. Yeah. So Cersei knows Bronn set the meeting up,
Mm-hmm.
and the big reveal that she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I did not believe for a second.
Yeah. I read one theory which was interesting to think about, but I don't really buy it, which was that what if it was actually not Jaime's?
Okay, so this is one of those issues where book and TV show, it's hard to say. So there's a lot of book theories about Cersei being pregnant. So this is one of those, it's going to the book theorists. Hey, remember that theory you guys all had about her clothes not fitting? Yeah. But in the show, it's a different timeline. Jaime's come back sooner. When would it have happened? Well, it's a little more fudgy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it gives us the ability to know, well, maybe she is, maybe she isn't.
Well, because the prophecy said that she would have 3 children, and she's had 3 children, and she buried them all, which the prophecy foretold. So I think if the prophecy is going to be true, then she's going to have a miscarriage, obviously. Or just because she's pregnant doesn't mean she'll deliver.
She did have 3 kids and they did die. But here's a fun, awful little thing. What if it's twins and she dies giving birth to the younger brother?
Who's a dwarf?
Oh.
Who's what?
Who's a dwarf?
A dwarf.
Yeah, I don't think that's what will happen. But I think what's more, I don't know. Honestly, my guess at this point is that it's just straightforward. She is pregnant and it is Jaime's, and that's it.
Yeah.
Second most likely in my guess is that she's just telling that because she is sensing that Jaime is slipping away from her a little bit, and so she needs something to bring him back in.
Yeah, she's giving Jaime everything he's ever wanted. Because if we remember in season 1, the very first episode, he doesn't care who finds out. He wants to scream about them from the top of the rooftops, and she has everything to lose, and she's the one who's all about keeping it secret. Well, she's gone through everything. She's lost everything she possibly could, and she's still on top. So she's at the point where she says, I had nothing left to lose. I don't care who knows. And Jaime actually has responsibility and serious thought now.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that actually cares about, well, can we do this kind of a thing? But she's giving him everything he ever wanted, because the only threat, and these are all my opinions, by the way, this is not me stating fact. The only threat to Cersei when it comes to Jaime is Tyrion. Because Tyrion and Jaime have this really strong bond. I think she mentions it, something about them going out and hunting and doing all of these activities together that she couldn't do because she was a woman. And so the one person she actually could lose Jaime to in her mind is Tyrion. So how does she keep him? We're having another child and you get to be the dad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and it's flawless. And on top, sorry, I'm really excited. On top of the fact that she's saying exactly what I've been saying, who the frick cares about who's king or queen at this moment? Make your deals and then change later. Well, she just follows her father's path and says, yeah, we'll agree to her terms. And that'll give us a chance to regroup and give us a chance to plot a strategy. And then we'll be in a better position to take her down. I love it all.
Yeah. It's writing for set pieces again, but it's setting up a set piece where Dany gets to meet Cersei when Cersei has some underhanded scheme in play. So that's a set piece I want to see.
Right.
Yep. I mean, I think
so.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just to say whether she really is pregnant or not is wholly irrelevant because there's not enough time in the show to know for sure. Really? I mean, there's
but
episodes.
At the same time, the timeline is ridiculously distorted at this point. I noticed it earlier when Sam was talking about how he knew Bran, and he suddenly says he survived north of the Wall for years, and I'm like, wait, what?
Years?
Season 4. Season.
Well, it's been years for us watching the show.
Well, what else are we going to use for time span? His crazy birthday math? Come on, there's only the show timeline.
Yeah, but the show doesn't have a timeline. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's flawless.
Except when they try to make it a timeline by saying he has survived north of the Wall for years.
Yeah.
Because if we just think about the stuff that we've seen, it's like it's only been years because it happened to span, TV show seasons, not because of the actual things that happened in that plot line.
But he's grown so much. He's physically grown. So obviously it's been years.
You grew a third eye.
Yes. You know what? We're already running long and we have more of the show to talk about.
Hey, I don't know, man.
To cut us off. I know I brought up that topic. I'm just saying, I'm tired. And it's making me cranky.
It happen when you bring up another topic.
Yeah, it does. I do that. So I do apologize for that because that is as much me talking to myself as anything.
Right.
So,
let's jump back to the beach. Davos and
sorry. The last thing on that last scene.
Yeah.
Mike McCauley says he quotes Jamie, "The things I do for love."
Yeah. Right.
Never betray me.
And yet, I'm sorry. But the closing beat in that scene though is not him hugging her and saying, "Oh boy, a new baby." It is her saying, "And never betray me again," and him kind of getting out like, "What?" Sort of face.
Yeah.
So Davos had told Gendry the first time, "Keep your father hush hush. We're going to keep this on the down low." And a great scene, showing how good of a smuggler he is.
Mm-hmm.
Paying off the gold cloaks and joking with them and actually having something in the boat for them to inspect.
And that nifty little trick where he's like realizes he has to cover the hammer, but he's got the move where he's showing them what's in the boat by flipping open the sheet, which happens to cover the hammer. And I don't have a lot to say necessarily about the scene, except that I loved it. It's great.
I loved everything about it. I thought it was great, and there was definitely that tension. I'm sorry, fermented crab meat is supposed to be an aphrodisiac or what Viagra? I don't know how to Viagra. I like crab meat, but no, I'm not eating fermented crab meat. And anyway, so Tyrion comes down and they're like, all right, you're a dwarf, you got a scar, come on, like we've killed dwarves without scars for less. And and then Gendry does his whole thing and knocks him out and saves the day, and this is Gendry. Tyrion, he'll do. Priceless. I had to mention that line.
Mm-hmm. The only thing they could have tossed in there is Gendry coming down to the beach and looking at the rowboat and just kind of grimacing. Like,
yeah, not again. It was a great image. Sir Davos, fermented crab meat. It'll put a hole in your plate mail.
Yeah.
Paulette had a
meme.
similar thing and said, Sir Davos is fermented crab meat. Try it. You'll like it. Yeah, I don't know. if
Davos
they,
makes everything great.
Yeah. I don't know if they took the money back from the guards before they left. One would hope. I don't know.
I'm
15,
sure.
15
They didn't
apiece.
leave in a hurry.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you kill some guards.
Honestly, what they ought to do is take the bodies in the boat with them and dump them overboard once they get out to water.
Agreed. Because then you have no record of it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone happens to stroll by, they don't say, "Hey, does that look like 2 dead gold cloaks on the beach down there?"
We should start patrolling here more often. Yeah.
Although, I mean, if they just disappeared,
Well, they
you'd
won't
think
know
somebody
where
would
they
know
disappeared
where they
from.
were patrolling.
Especially since the whole reason they went to that beach was that they don't patrol there often, so it's not necessarily like a likely place to look.
True.
That probably
So
will
we,
come back.
Shall we swift travel back to Dragonstone?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
They just took the subway, right?
Yeah.
heading into the cavern, and Davos again. Okay, Clyde, or whatever he said his name was.
Clovis.
Clovis. But Gendry jumps right in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved all of this stuff too. Basically, so with the single exception of the weird, cringy stuff about with Missandei, was that last week or 2 weeks ago? But generally speaking, Davos is great in every scene, and he makes every scene that he's in better. And I love just the idea of Gendry going, yeah, and then just totally not going with that plan.
Right.
And I really kind of liked it that he's just kind of on board with saying, our dads were friends. Let's be friends too. That sounds great to me.
It was really, they had true chemistry. They both kind of really dove in and kind of, I guess, saw kind of a kindred spirit right away.
Mm-hmm.
I love the two together. I think that they actually have really good chemistry. I love the talking about the dads. Jon has a sword like his father. Gendry has a hammer like his father.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the fact that Gendry's like, yeah, whatever, is pretty great. But when we're walking up to meeting with Jon, it's, yeah, you're gonna go to Winterfell, and in your head you're thinking, oh, he's gonna see Arya again, and then it's, no, he's gonna hook up with Jon. Yeah, but Arya.
Right.
And yeah, Paulette, I love that line. I met your dad too. You're shorter. Just that look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you're not as fat.
Yeah.
And Graves and Davos trying to talk them out, one last time at a going, nobody mind me. All I've ever done is live to a ripe old age.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I wrote in my notes, is Davos becoming the new Dolores Ed? I'm starting to think yes.
Anything else on them? Got, Tyrion and Jorah. Flowers quite like you.
Except Grey Worm.
It was weird that they mentioned that whole coin thing, because honestly, I did not remember that at all. Like, I take for their word for it that's like, yeah, I bet there was a scene of that in the show at some point, but I didn't remember it. So it's like, it didn't strike me as a particularly memorable moment that they would bond over, but sure, I guess.
I'm surprised they didn't show it on the previously on when he.
Yeah. I think it was just a nice way to remind viewers of their previous history, since it was a minute ago.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was Tyrion always has his manners and keeps his graces, even when, he doesn't, I don't think, care particularly much for Jorah, other than he's impressed as fuck that he's back and survived. But yeah, I thought it was just a really nice moment for Tyrion to show that, he's a cool guy.
Yep. Agreed.
The goodbyes with Dany. She has grown used to the king in the north. Interesting.
I've grown accustomed to your face. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when I made that observation that, he's not trying to take her power. He's not trying to take anything from her except for help for his cause. And
Mhm.
he's not trying to use her, which is nice.
And he's not blowing smoke up her ass either about, I'm going to swear this to you and that to you just to get what he wants, and then nothing. So there's a lot of Eddard Stark in him for sure, which is adorable.
Although I liked all of that, but I was taken out of the scene just a little bit. What the bit of like, I don't need your permission, I am a king. The dramatic weight of that is sapped by a little bit. It was like, but she took your boat.
I know.
So what's your plan here?
I'll call Cersei. She'll give me a ride.
So
he'll just hop on a dragon and
yes.
There's one of these out there fan theories about merfolk. And every now and then throughout the episode,
Christiana's face.
Timmy's been making mentions of the merfolk and how they're all going to work, and just really funny jokes.
Oh my god!
But I wasn't bringing them in because it would just derail.
Yeah.
But I have to. Timmy has left, and I have to add one for her. It's fine because the merfolk would help Jon escape.
Right. We need water elementals now or whatever.
So yeah.
Moving on. Oh, so I actually have an audio drop of this Old Town scene when they're studying their books.
What are you looking at? Look, Kaiju, what does that look supposed to mean? I'm a piece of shit because I can't figure out a way for you to help? These are going to be... I'm sorry, these are going to be a help. I should have looked at these pictures before. Here's a good one of the tire marks. Could we get any farther away? Where'd you shoot this from, up in a tree? What's this on there? It's bullshit. Bullshit. That's great. Bullshit, what a clue. Why didn't I think of that?
Thank you, Chooch. I have been like, Cousin Vinny, they did my Cousin Vinny scene. They finally did my Cousin Vinny scene with Tilly and Sam. I've been waiting for this. You should get an audio drop. Yeah. Thanks, Choochie.
Prince Rhaegar had his marriage annulled and married somebody else in secret.
Rhaegar.
Yeah. And there's 15,000 some steps in this, isn't it?
Right.
And this many shits. No, that was the scene I honestly have been hoping for since they got to Old Town, and she's been reading the books, praying for it.
So here's what's fun is that during the original viewing, this is the scene where I got up to use the bathroom and I missed the whole exchange.
No,
I rewatched. So basically, I started so I figured like, okay, well, I'm kind of listening, but I can't hear everything they're saying, and I honestly heard when he interrupted her, but I hadn't really picked up on what she was saying until all of a sudden I'm looking on Twitter and people are saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he interrupted her when she was saying blah blah," and I'm like, wait, what?
Oh man, that's almost as bad as reading it as an episode spoiler. God, I like screamed, I yelled, "My Cousin Vinny," and I said, "Back that shit up. I need to hear it again." It was amazing. Oh, Nutty, you had to lose it too, right?
Oh yeah, I was absolutely loving it. And then here's Sam play with this ancient tome.
Right.
Yeah.
Chew on this.
Well, see, yeah, and I mean, obviously, what's such a big deal about this one, as it ties into that whole theory, is that it is not merely that Jon's parents aren't who we thought, but also that he's not even a bastard. And we remember the scene earlier in this season where they made such a big deal about, "Oh, I'm a bastard," and Miss Sandy is like, "Bastard? What's a bastard?"
Yeah. Oh my God. This just, my jaw hit the ground, and this is where it's like, we're saying that there's not really any catch a breath scenes this season, and it's just like one thing leads to another, and that was just like, and then they just kind of blew past it, and Sam did his usual mansplaining bullshit, and it was just awesome. It was beautiful.
See, this is why I almost hope at this point that, like the suggestion I made earlier, which is that it's just not, they're never going to get to it because there's too much else going on, and then it'll eventually just be like Bran is the last person alive with just some, a Tormund or something like that, and he's going to say, "By the way, did you know Jon was actually a Targaryen? And Tormund's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he says it now, I guess.
Yeah.
then Sam will be there to say, Rhaegar? Yeah, he got married. in secret."
Bragger.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, the only other thing that I want to say about this scene is little Sam is huge and he grew really fast. So Game
Uh-huh.
of Thrones,
Yeah.
been there a lot longer than we realize.
Yeah. True.
I feel like we had a huge montage that covered the number of shits and bowls of food that he'd slopped out. So I feel like there was
Could've been a week.
some time back.
Well, here's something we could also try to connect the dots of is that when did Sam let Bran north of the wall in relation to Gilly giving birth to young Sam?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
I can't remember.
She was
actually.
pregnant when he let her
Because-
through.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, I thought she gave birth north of the wall, right?
Oh shoot. I don't know. Now I'm not sure.
I can't remember either, and we don't need to relitigate that right
Yeah.
now.
But
anyway, I keep doing that, right? It's like it keeps me bringing up these tangents.
no, I
Anyway,
mean that would be an interesting, timeline to look at.
yeah.
So
I'm not sure
Mike's-
we would be rewarded for that effort though, because
Right.
it's not going to line up.
it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Mike says it's pretty much solidifies John being the rightful heir to the throne. And while that depends, is John more the rightful heir or is Dany? Because Dany was of the Mad King's children, whereas John would be a grandchild. Rhaegar was supposed to be king, but he was never coronated. It's pretty dicey. And honestly, I think everyone who says that they're a rightful heir, none of that matters anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
and
kind
the-
of
The rules.
I think they say rightful heir in the articles and things that I've been reading because based on Targaryen history and lines of succession, they would have gone to a grandson before a daughter or whatever. So
Yeah.
it in the historical sense, it would make sense for it to go to John. In our sense, we've been watching Dany fight for this shit since season 1, so we all want to see Dany be the Targaryen heir, I guess. But yeah, that was the defense I saw for that.
So Gilly gave birth at Craster's Keep.
Right.
That's why
Okay.
she has to
Oh,
run
that's right.
away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, right, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was the last straw reading about all the shits and heads
Yeah.
packed up. They're out of here.
Right. I thought the scene actually was, even though obviously it was kind of trolling the fans, I did think that played well in the sense that she's finding some of this stuff interesting as she's learning more about those. And I like that. But also that he really is preoccupied. And so that he just kind of is not really listening to her because he's so fed up with the Maesters. Although him breaking in and for one, it was a little bit irritating that at least the way they filmed it, it made it look like he was stealing books like almost at random.
Yeah.
Just walking through the aisle, grabbing random books. Now, I mean, I
Agreed.
think that we can imagine that he actually knows what books are in there and he is being more purposeful and not just grabbing random titles. But the way they shot it didn't look like that. But that, as far as we can tell, he's now leaving still not knowing about his dad and brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Archmaester, you dick. So did he say where they're headed? Do we know where they're headed?
Presume Winterfell, but
Well, and it raises the question though of whether he would think to stop at Horn Hill. Would he do that not knowing what was going on?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they stopped there on his way down, but that was with the idea that Gilly was going to stay there. So
Yeah, after that reception and stealing the sword, I think
Yeah.
he's not
Yeah.
well, that's true. After stealing the sword, he would
Oh
probably
my
not go
God.
back.
He's a serial like deserter.
He is.
He's
Oh my
klepto.
God.
He
'Cause he
shows up at
knows,
places
but-
and takes important things and then leaves.
Tried, yeah, he tried to
is
do it
an
the wall.
adventurer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah.
got his magic sword.
Yes.
He's got the tomes of information. I
Uh-huh.
mean,
Yeah.
all right.
I think
Yeah.
he's intending to go north and try to meet back up with John with the books that
Yeah.
he's got.
That makes sense.
So he'll be there next week.
Sounds right.
Or next season.
Like-
Who knows?
I can't believe
Yeah,
he
the
wasn't there at the end of the episode.
Right, yeah, like the next one will start with them walking out into the snowstorm, and then he's like, "Wait, John, come, I'm coming too." You're like, "Sam, how did you get here so fast?" "Oh, I don't know, walked."
3 months ago.
Although technically, with all these disconnected scenes, we don't actually know how the timeline lines up perfectly, except, of course, I suppose, of the Archmaester knowing about his dad and his brother. So,
Yeah.
But he's a good lad, says Paulette.
Was anybody else touched in any way at all earlier in the episode, since we're talking about the Tarleys, when, Dickon, screw it, I'll go burn with daddy, which I think kind of showed that, at least what I kind of felt we were led to believe in the books anyways, was that Dickon was just kind of like this vanilla kind of placeholder, kind of puppet kind of thing, didn't really have his own. He just, like, everything he did was for his dad, was for Randall. And so I thought it was really touching to see that, but also the only, like, human kind of nod to him being a human in any way, shape, or form was when Randall Tarley reached out to touch Dickon's arm right before Drogon toasted him. And so, but like, why would Sam go back to the house after that guy who literally can't show any kind of affection until he's about to die? And then why would he go back to Horn Hill? I think he's got to go back to the Wall. He's got to tell John what he's discovered.
he did love his mom, though.
He did.
His sister too, and so. And I was just asking the question, not so much that I expected that he would, as much as how could he find out about what happened?
Mm-hmm.
If they find a chatty innkeeper, maybe, but I don't even know if that knows. Yeah,
there'd be a lot of rumors about people who got roasted, but I don't know they would say it by name or people.
Especially, if they weren't right near Horn Hill, I wouldn't expect anybody to know. But I mean, and who what would you even believe with stories of dragons and zombies walking around north of the Wall? It's like, what do you expect?
Yeah. So we've got our final backdrop set piece, the titular Eastwatch.
Yeah.
Where we get a bunch more reuniteds.
Yeah.
Tormund does not like this plan.
Because it's a dumb plan, and sure. But okay. I did like the whole exchange of like, okay, so wait, you have to convince the queen with the dragons or the queen who sleeps with her brother? It's like, both. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you're in luck. We've got some other people who want to head north.
Right. And so I mean, I think, I've said it a couple of times here, but just the Suicide Squad is just this, like, we're assembling this team that, like, they don't seem like, it's like, I don't like the way you operate. You're a loose cannon. Yeah, well, you have to do everything by the book. Well, yeah, but you wrecked 3 cars. It's like, yeah, but I get results. Anyway, that said, I did like some of those reunions. First of all, the idea that Jorah and Thoros know each other, which is like that's a deep cut. And the just Gendry obviously pointing out, hey, I don't like those guys. Yeah, they sold me.
Yeah.
This is not the ideal.
Actually, there's no particular reason why it would necessarily come up, but John would be aware of Melisandre, so if it came up to say, Gendry could say, yes, they sold me to Melisandre. Yeah. But at the same time, John is definitely in a very pragmatic, he gets the line, right, which is, we're all on the same side. How could we be set up? Because we're all still breathing.
So
I don't know what else he could have said that would have shut them the fuck up any faster to get over their beef. It's like, that's all well and good, guys. Sorry you don't like each other. Let's go fight the dead people now.
I really like that, because on the one hand, it's interesting seeing all of these different characters connect in ways we wouldn't have predicted.
Yeah.
But I also just liked John kind of going, you guys, come on, we're gonna go fight some frozen zombies. What, are we doing this now?
Focus.
Yeah. Bicker while we walk.
So,
Exactly.
So 7 men enter. How many do we think are going to return? Somebody's got to die. If somebody doesn't fucking die, if at least 2 don't die, I'm quitting the podcast.
Okay, so I watched really close. Fuck you, you're not. So after all this, you're not quitting. So I watched closely at the end of the episode, and there were guys walking out behind our little Magnificent Seven, and I couldn't tell if they were closing the gate or if they were following with them, kind of like there's always like the red shirt kind of going onto the planet in Star Trek kind of thing. And then it seemed like in the next episode, it seemed like there were more. I couldn't tell if there was like those extra guys that I thought I saw in the tunnel, or if they were being chased by other guys.
I think they've brought some red shirts with them.
Okay.
And I think it is for the exact same purpose that red shirts are always brought along, is that so we can have a couple of gruesome deaths before we have any sort of a significant character die.
Right.
But I'm with Chooch in the sense that we have already had a significant pulled punch this season where it seemed really like the dramatic weight was in favor of someone important was going to die, and then nobody did. That I feel like this mission, if someone in this assembly doesn't die, where the hell have narrative stakes gone?
Yeah,
I don't know. Somebody's dying. What, Ben?
Exactly. What they've blow all the stakes, right?
Yeah.
We can't count on anything.
Well, and so, sorry, Nutty, what you were going to say?
Barrick's definitely going to die, but that doesn't matter. He just comes back.
Right.
And I forgot in my notes, that's how I had phrased the question. Who's going to die and stay dead?
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing, just because of all the characters there, I feel like Barrick is the one that we probably actually care the least about whether he dies or not.
Yeah.
But he's also the one that, in theory, is just going to come back again. So, I don't know. I think like he or Thoros, I don't feel like we have any real more narrative weight for them. You know,
they sold Gendry. That's all I need to know.
Well, it's like, where else are their stories going to go?
Yeah.
Right? I don't feel like there's anything more for them. Gendry, it would be a real heartbreaker to not have him get to see Arya again.
Yeah.
Right? The Hound has got all sorts of business to attend to still.
Shit.
Jorah, I think, could be a goner.
Yeah.
Because he got to say his farewells.
Mm-hmm. And she really made a fuss over him. And that's really what he would have needed. That's what you would have hoped for him.
Yeah, and Tormund, I don't feel like we can kill him without paying off whatever he's got with Brienne.
Well,
but it would be a really interesting tack, because then you could have extra chaos with the free people, free folk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Losing their kind of leader. I mean, they don't have a leader, but
Yeah.
He's representing them.
Yeah, because they were rounded up by one dude, and so they're kind of following one dude now, and it's worked out great so far.
Yeah, but we'll see next time, I guess. And I feel like next time we might finally get the action sequence that seemed promised by the fact that this episode was called Eastwatch,
right?
And then had Eastwatch by the Sea in the credits. And then what we get from Eastwatch is a 30-second scene, and then they're leaving. And no action there. Which is, I mean, it's fine. I guess a lot of it did focus on the idea that there's a coming threat to Eastwatch, and a lot of narrative momentum happened as a result. But at the same time, I think it was not an unreasonable prediction that we were going to get another Hardhome style battle at Eastwatch, which didn't happen. Maybe still to come, but if it is, why would that not happen during the episode they call Eastwatch?
They didn't want us all to totally poop our pants. They knew we were just pooping a little bit with the rest of the episode.
Subverting your expectations.
Yeah.
So, skipping back just a little bit, I really did love how, Tormund's like, "You're crazy. Who did you bring with you?" Us. And it's like, "All right, you three, and who else? Did you bring the big woman?"
Oh my gosh.
By far my favorite thing.
That's
and when they found them in the cells, the Hound just cracked me up more than Jorah and Thoros, because he's the Hound. Everybody in the chat seems to think that Jorah is a goner, and I guess you guys do too.
He's feel like I missed the least, I think.
I feel like they're announcing that a lot, and I think that we might get something subverted. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm really hoping for something good and interesting. Like I said, I don't think they're coming back with a White Walker in a cage or a bag.
What if they do, but it's because it's one of their own?
It's one of theirs.
I went on this whole
shit.
episode without saying that. That's my biggest fear, is that it's going to be one of them.
Jorah comes back as a White Walker or another, or whatever they're called when they're turned.
And he flicks Tyrion the coin back.
But then he finds a cure.
Jorah should have been a maester all along.
Get a little dragon flame.
Just from a storytelling perspective, if any of that party gets killed and we do not see them reanimate, that's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. I agree.
True.
Ooh, what if Beric becomes a... That would be kind of interesting.
That could tie back into the, the cold hands theory of like what's going on there. But anyway, so we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we're all speculating now, but
wildly, it's awesome.
I did see a great meme that assigned D&D classes to everybody in their little party. It was pretty good, I thought, actually. John was a ranger. Beric was a paladin. Thoros is a cleric. Yeah. Thoros was a cleric. Tormund is a barbarian, obviously. Gendry is a fighter. Trying to remember what they assigned his hound to.
Oh, he's got to be like a rogue, or I mean, because he's got to be a multi-class, but he's got to have something where there's a lot of yeah.
I don't remember. It might have been like a different flavored fighter or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
I also saw a good one, which is the what is it? The Western Magnificent Seven poster with them with their names. And it was clever.
No.
I believe you.
Shall we rate this sucker?
Rate it? Yeah. Who's got a rating?
I have one.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 wheelchairs because Bran has a goddamn wheelchair in Westeros. Woo! I love it. It opens up so many cosplay opportunities for people that are in wheelchairs. I mean, there aren't that many, and now we have another one.
I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 things that you wanted to say, but there's no time. Yeah.
I would give it 8 enemies of enemies.
Ah, yes. There was a lot of those.
And I am going to give it 7.5 close-ups of cuties. I'd be Drogon, although Sam is also a cutie, but I give that a average of 8.1 out of 10. And what is next week's episode title?
After all of our work that we've been doing this whole time, HBO decided to honor us. The next episode is titled Beyond the Wall.
Oh yeah. So I guess I wonder if it'll be one where we spend like the whole episode up there, dealing with their mission.
5 minutes.
Coming up, there certainly seems to be a lot of northern down the wall battles.
We'll jump right back to them walking into the snowstorm, and then John will like trip and like, "What was that?" And it's like, "Oh look, there's a white right here. That's convenient. Let's just white up.
Let's just go." I love it.
Let's go back.
Mission
that was easy.
Get some hot cocoa.
Yeah. So Michael Colley gives it 7 out of 10 very cold bastards.
Very cold.
See, I just I wish I had rated it meticulously recorded shits.
That's a good one too.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. That was a great discussion.
Yeah. Because there's still a lot to talk about, obviously. And see, and the frustrating thing this season is just that it's uneven because there's stuff that I really love and other stuff that I don't love as much.
Yeah, there's a lot of highs and a lot of really low lows. So those lows are really affecting the highs for me.
Yeah.
But I'm digging this season. I'm having fun, and I'm actually kind of glad it's a shorter season.
Yeah. Well, just giving payoff to some of these things, finally. Stuff that's been slow burn for so long, and just some of these really fascinating character combinations that, you know, who would have thought you'd have Gendry meeting up with Beric Dondarrion again?
My God. Not happy.
I forgot about the brothers until we saw them in that cell.
I had remembered mostly because I care about the Hound. I don't care about Beric or Thoros very much, but the Hound I wanted to, because I wanted to know first of all, like all of this whole group that's going north of the wall here. I wanted to know, are they going to stop back at Winterfell first? I mean, it wouldn't really make logistical sense for them to do that, given that they sailed down to Dragonstone. It wouldn't really make sense to go back to Winterfell before Eastwatch, but at the same time, now they're embarking on a suicide mission without telling anybody.
Yeah. Davos knows.
Hopefully they sent a Raven.
Yeah.
I also was really interested because Sandor has always been afraid of fire.
Yeah.
And now he's dealing with ice for the first time. So that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think he's more afraid of the dead things. He saw him in the fire.
True.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My Google foo is totally failing. I can't find that thing that tells what the Hound would be in D&D terms.
Oh, I don't know. I saw it somewhere. I don't feel like Googling right now. It's too late.
Yes. All right. We've drawn to a close here.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and all your chats. And we will definitely be talking to you next week. Beyond the Wall.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have feedback for the Beyond the Wall podcast, you can email us at btw@specficmedia.com. You can also leave us a comment on the website. Go to specficmedia.com, where you'll find a shiny BTW button. That'll take you right to our page. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike 3.0 Unported license. Feel free to share and remix. Just give us credit and don't charge money for it.